Good morning. At this time, we'll call to order the Board of County Commissioners meeting for Thursday, September 29. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Here.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick here.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Here.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert here. All are present. We do have a quorum. Would you join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For those who are present today, would ask that you turn your devices to silent or off so as not to interfere with electronic communications. We do have 2 or 3 presentations to make this morning. We'll do so at this time. I'm going to ask Mr. Paul Davis, who is Director of Emergency Medical Services, to join me at the podium this morning. Paul, thank you very much. We have a special employee recognition, and so I'll turn the microphone over to Paul.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm pleased to introduce staff from the Emergency Communications Center. Emergency Communications Specialist Brian Campbell, Supervisor Chris Shelton, and Training Manager Grady Victory. The reason we put this information forward is Brian, who has been with us just a couple of years, was instrumental in saving a life in Leawood. In mid-May, he received a call of a cardiac arrest. The call was very emotional, and he supported the caller with instruction. The caller was 8 months pregnant and was asked to do CPR on her mother. Within a few minutes after responders arrived, the CPR that he instructed was successful, and the patient's condition had changed from code blue to critical. And recently at the City of Leawood, the staff received recognition as well. But Brian was also featured in the International Association of Emergency Dispatch as recognition in their international periodical. So we're pleased to present him with an award, and glad that he's able to make it here off his shift for a few minutes today. So thank you.
I'm Brian Campbell. Just want to say I appreciate it. I have been working, like you said, just under 2 years, and it's been just the greatest honor being able to help the community of Johnson County and just everyone within. And it was quite an honor getting to meet someone, because very rarely do we see anyone, let alone interact with how they're doing after the call. So knowing that not only is she doing well, but thriving, and her whole family is very appreciative of it. So I just wanted to say I appreciate it. Thank you.
You know, a specific thank you to Brian for his good work, but I think it's an example of what happens every week, perhaps every day, throughout our medical emergency services organization. So again, congratulations to all of you. So let's kind of gather around here. We've got a photographer over here, so. No, that's not it. No. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And next, I'd like to ask Arenado, who's Director of New Century Airport, to come to the podium. I don't know how many people in the county recognize that we have a short line railroad that operates in New Century, supporting commercial businesses that are located there. And those folks who operate and are responsible for that short line railroad have received special recognition again, I think is for 6 years in a row, 6 or 7 years in a row. So Aaron, I'll ask you to explain.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman. Good morning. Thank you, Chairman Eilert. So in addition to operating two of the busiest airports in the state of Kansas, your New Century Air Center also operates a railroad, as the chairman said. This was a leftover remnant from the Olathe Naval Air Station days that when the railroad was put in the 1940s to move personnel and cargo for the Navy. Today, the airport staff operates this in partnership with BNSF to bring, as Chairman Eilert said, new goods and supplies to businesses at New Century. And a big part of that is safety at New Century with the railroad. And so the American Short Line Railroad Association has created an award called the Jake Award, and Jake Award was distinction for safety. And if you win a Jake Award with safety with distinction, that means you had 0 safety incidences during the previous year. And so to put it in perspective, the American Short Line Railroads, we move 700 to 1,000 cars a year. And we're fortunate that we have a staff that includes we have 4 engineers and 3 conductors. And make no mistake, this is not all they do. They may be moving rail in the morning, and they may be mowing the field or changing out filters in a building. Everybody puts in extra effort to make things go at New Century in a diverse type of way. So I'm pleased that in order to win the Jake Safety Award distinction, they have to have a safety record that is perfect for 2021, and that was received again for the 5th time in a row here at New Century. And I'd like to call up our staff to recognize their service. So one of our conductors who started in the airfield and learned over on the railroad side, Vance Taggart, Wyatt Hogart, Chris Blackley, who just joined the airport staff recently, our engineers, Jeremy Struble, Tim DeMont, Kyle Kaufman, and George Hopper, our rail and air supervisor. If you would please join me in great recognition.
We're going to have to group up together here. Yeah. Just come this way, guys. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for your good work in support of activities, important commercial activities at New Century Airport. So again, congratulations. And next, I'd like to ask Bill Nixon to join me at the podium. Bill is Director of Technology and Innovation Services, and I have a proclamation recognizing October as Cybersecurity Month. So, Bill, I'll present this to you. And if you'd like to make some comments, please do so.
So just very briefly, Cybersecurity Month, it was started in 2004 and is held every October, and it's a collaboration between government and industry to raise awareness about the importance of cybersecurity and resources that are available to the public. This year's campaign is See Yourself in Cyber, which focuses on the people part of cybersecurity. Just some metrics to let you know how important cybersecurity is. It's estimated about every 39 seconds there's a cyber attack, which affects 1 in 3 Americans. There's over 40,000 ransomware attacks that take place around the world daily. And a little bit closer to home, a county in New Jersey in May was the 22nd U.S. state or local government that was attacked. They had to cancel schools, personal data for the residents were exposed, and most of the departments had to go back into paper. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen within our county. 4 basic steps that we recommend for you to take. One is enable multi-factor authentication. And what that does is
If your password is compromised, you still need another factor to get into an account. Secondly, make sure that you use strong passwords. So for example, you want to use a password phrase maybe that's nice and long. Don't use something that might be known to people. Like don't use my name is Bill 2022. Use something like big red clock and 2 yellow hands or something like that. Third thing is beware of phishing. And we're seeing a number of phishing attacks across the county. And we want to make sure that people don't fall claim to that. So if you get an email from, say, the sheriff's office telling you you're under arrest and you need to send some gift cards to him, that's probably not true. Or if you get a call from the IRS saying you owe money, if you are concerned, contact the bank, contact the sheriff's office, contact the IRS through a known number, and make sure that it's a scam. 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, it's going to be a scam. And then finally, make sure that you update your software. Most phones and applications nowadays have the auto update feature, so make sure that you have that enabled. That's one of the safest things that you can do to make sure that you're protected. Then finally, you can look at on our website under jocogov.org, cybersecurity, or staysafeonline.org, which is a government website that has a lot of additional resources. Thank you.
Well, Bill, thank you very much. You know, I've always read, if you get a telephone call from the IRS asking for money, it is a scam.
Yes.
Because they don't do that by phone, so.
Correct.
Well, thank you very much for your work and those in your department. You know, an organization like Johnson County and every other organization, we get attacked every day. And so it's because of your good work and those that work for your department that we're able to continue to move forward. So,
Great.
Bill, thank you very
Thank you.
much.
I have one. Right.
Hey,
Thank you.
thanks a lot. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll turn to the public comment portion of our agenda. If there's those who speak, whether virtually or in person, the time limit is 2 minutes. And for those who are present, there is a modem on the podium which reflects the time that you have left. And if you go over the 2 minutes, then the chair is required to ask you to conclude your comments. So we'll begin this morning. Clerk will read the first name.
First, virtually, we have Frank Moley. Frank Moley.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you might speak up a little louder, Frank.
Okay. The disdain, Frank Moley, unincorporated. Johnson
Just a
County.
second, yeah.
Yep.
You're not loud enough.
My audio settings are turned all the way up. Can you hear me?
Okay, let's try it again. That's a little better, yes.
Okay. Yeah, because my audio is turned all the way up. So, okay. Frank Moley, unincorporated Johnson County. The disdain that this board shows the unincorporated parts of this county is beyond reproach and keeps getting worse. We have a commissioner openly lying to the county while backdoor pushing for more truck traffic through our areas to appease donors and corrupt city government. Ms. Hanslick has also had a fantastic week of open contempt. Last week in this meeting, she advocated for paying market rate for the county manager. Yet she has actively advocated for not doing the same for the sheriff's department. Then we know that she doesn't like his politics, and frankly, I'm not a fan of some of it either. But public safety isn't a political battle. It's the primary job of this board. She then was on record in a debate stating that the rural area only makes up a small portion of the population, then goes on to insinuate that we were much less important. I ask you, Ms. Hanslick, how much of the residential property tax revenue per capita that you spend recklessly every single week comes from us unimportant people in the county? I have a core request to get that answer, not that I expect the county to respond to me. Last week, Ed reiterated that public safety was job one of this commission. Yet, we saw another wreck this week on 199th between a truck and a passenger vehicle. But sure, safety is important as long as it doesn't impede on Mark or illegal annexations or the sheriff's department. So I guess lying to save face is the MO of this board. Now, what do I get for my massive property tax burden from this county? I get trucks crammed down my throat, censorship by this board, commissioners that lie, bureaucrats that lie, and the only services that I actually care about defunded. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Now we have Cassie Woolworth. Cassie Woolworth.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
You need to turn it up a little bit.
Oh, my goodness.
All right, try again.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Barely.
Is that worse?
Okay.
No. No, it's on theirs.
How about now?
You're good. You're good. Thank you.
All right, we'll start here. My name is Cassie Woolworth. I'm in Olathe. You know who I am. I am speaking about.
Oops.
Hold on. Is she still there?
Hello?
All right.
Yeah,
let's
I'm
try
here.
it again. Go ahead.
All right. Cassie Woolworth, Olathe. Calvin Hayden's office says it's still conducting a month-long investigation into the 2020 and 2021 election results in Johnson County, despite a lack of evidence. I'm really making them mad, and I don't care, he says. In a video recorded August 30th and posted to the website Rumble, a woman asked Hayden if she can take pictures and send them to Hayden. She is a poll worker. He says, be slippery about it if you do it. After the laughter dies down, he adds, you can take a picture of your own ballot. I know that, but everything else, they get all touchy and crazy if they catch you doing it. I'm sorry, Sheriff. Maybe that's because it's illegal. I would think you would know that. Hayden has often mentioned voting drop boxes as a source of concern, but said his surveillance didn't turn up anything. I'm sorry to say, where's that surveillance? I think we've asked for it. Is this a transparency issue? Why hasn't the sheriff produced any of those 200 voter fraud claims 2 years later? He produced one, but is this a transparency issue? There is an amendment on the ballot for November 8th that will make the sheriff election partisan. Partisan injustice. Partisan. Just think about that. Justice is supposed to be blind. If Cal Hayden had his way, all counties will be elections and will be partisan. It's just a power grab. So say no to the amendment and to Sheriff Hayden. Vote no unless he produces these 200 claims. You know, transparency and all. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Now in person, we have Ben Hobart. Ben Hobart.
Ben Hobart, Westwood Hills. This board's strong recommendation for all eligible individuals to be jabbed with the clot shots remain in effect. Should anyone get a bivalent clot shot booster for BA4 and BA5 that has been tested only on mice, with the only evidence of efficacy being increased antibody titers in mice, what is the evidence of long-term efficacy? None. What is the direct evidence of decreased risk of infection between mice, yet alone humans? None. What is the direct evidence of prevention of bad symptoms or hospitalization in humans? None. What is the direct evidence of prevention of death in humans? None. And recognize this is all about BA4 and BA5 variants of Omicron, which have been shown to be much less virulent than Delta or the ancestral strain. More easily transmissible? Sure, so what? I'm not going to worry about the mild symptoms generally evidenced by Omicron. You can make your own decision. Dr. Asim Malhotra, reportedly an eminent cardiologist in the United Kingdom, was one of the first to take 2 doses of the clot shots and promote it on Good Morning Britain. He has published a 2-part research paper entitled Curing the Pandemic of Misinformation on COVID-19 mRNA Vaccines Through Real Evidence-Based Medicine. He now states, there is a strong scientific, ethical, and moral case to be made that COVID-19 vaccines rollout must be stopped immediately until raw data has been released for independent scrutiny. It should be noted that Dr. Malhotra's father died by cardiac arrest just after he received a clot shot. The specific time lag was not referenced in the article on Dr. Robert Malone's Substack, but Dr. Malhotra has indicated he will hold the government directly responsible for his father's death. Educate yourself. Go to the COVID blog, How Bad Is My Batch, and open VAERS. Why aren't Dr. Lemaster, Chairman Eilert, and Mr. Areola warning Johnson Countyans of the potential adverse effects of the clot shots?
Thank you.
Now we have Andrew Cross. Andrew Cross.
Andrew Cross, Shawnee, Kansas.
Let me answer the first question first. If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring it in.
Good. That was President Biden back in February 7th of this year. Okay. Now this will crash the it's your Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 have suffered explosive attacks. Those systems are down. Now this will crash the German economy, so these hard assets in Germany will be bankrupt and be a steal for your investors. Aldi's may flop as that German food importer here into Johnson County won't have anything shipping from Germany. Finally, natural gas already rose 400% in Germany since last year, 12 months ago. The Nord Stream events forced Germany to buy gas from other places, like USA. That ratchets up availability and costs here. Natural gas, not coal or nuclear power, is the backup for the solar and wind energy that are not generating enough electricity or are, funnily enough, not generating any. So, how are you and Evergy preparing for the natural gas spike for your citizens and all of your dependent facilities? Water, sewage, government, health, library, and others. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we have Anna Van Hopen.
Thank you, Linda. Hi, good morning. It's good to see everybody. I have a request of all the items that will be discussed this morning, items 1 through 6.
Could you identify yourself, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, Anna Oakley Van Oppen in Overland Park. So I have a request. There's 6 items that are going to be presented and discussed today. Each of them has financial impact, financial consequences, but nowhere on the agenda does it state whether these items had been contemplated in the budget that was already approved, if these are brand new add-on items, or if these are increases from what had already been approved. So it would be hugely helpful for the public if, as we go through each item, you could disclose what is the nature of the item. Is it brand new? Did you already approve it? Is it additional money? And what is the increment? If it is additional, what's the increment? The second point that I want to make, I've really been praying quite a bit over the last couple weeks as I've listened and come to the meetings and as items keep coming up that don't seem to be contemplated in the original budgeting process. You know, I'm I'm racking my brain how, what business process, what discipline takes place either at the management office or with this committee that allows that to be. So there are things that have come up that were legislative or judicial in nature. There's the compensation issue for sheriff. There's this decrepit building that's connected to healthcare, this Evergreen project, and none of those came out of the blue, right? We could have seen those things coming. And, I've been in financial services for about 33, 35 years, very senior position at some pretty high-profile companies. And I can tell you, if I didn't forecast and foresee and have a scenario built for any of these outcomes and had already anticipated that, if I let a mistake like that happen once, I'm getting a write-up. Like, I'm on a performance plan. If it happens twice, I'm fired. So I really want to, I'm trying to find the benefit of the doubt and find common sense for why this is happening at this level, but it should not. And if it's true that our county manager makes $400 all in a year, I'll do it for half. I'll do it for half. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I have Rodney Whittington.
Hi, I'm Rodney Whittington from Lenexa. I'm the CEO of Method Healthcare, and my job is to consult with nursing facilities across the state and other surrounding states. My comments have nothing to do with the quality of facility that Evergreen is. Chris, the CEO, is a respected peer, as well a friend of mine. The issues I have with a new building in this Johnson County area is that there's no need for it. We already can't staff the buildings that are currently built. Buildings are sitting half empty. There was a article that just came out this morning about 6 a.m. from McKnight's. It's the leading publication for nursing facilities, that 35 nursing homes in Kansas either closed this year or are at lower capacity because they just can't staff them. So to add another building is detrimental to the care of the residents in Johnson County. There's no way to staff them at this point, and that's only going to get worse. People left our profession in droves during COVID, and they haven't come back due to increased salaries elsewhere. The other thing is that there are other options besides building a new building. There are many buildings that are in the Johnson County area that are newer that I foresee being for sale very soon, and in the time frame that Evergreen could inhabit them and combine staff, take better care of patients, et cetera. And I'll yield back the rest of my time.
Thank you.
Chairman, that completes our public speakers.
That concludes the public comment portion of our agenda. Thank you all very much. There are no notes for the record this morning, so we'll move to our consent agenda.
Chair,
Excuse
hold
me.
on just one moment. Excuse me, for the public comment section?
Was there somebody who signed up? Come right ahead.
Excuse me, your name is?
Gary Morgan.
Okay. I'm sorry, you signed the other two forms. I apologize if it's public comments.
There's 3 forms?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, first time ever.
Because just so you know, we're in general public comments. We're not actually to the items yet.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah, sorry. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Gary Morgan from Shawnee. We live in the greatest country on the face of the earth, and I thank God of Abraham every day for the opportunities I've been afforded. But the last few years has been opened many eyes and hearts to the fact that the very fabric of our constitutional republic is under full attack by a party that does not support the Constitution and threatened and feels threatened by those of us that live by the principles of our Constitution. The First Amendment gives us the freedom of speech and expression, as we seem to have a commissioner who feels the need to attack us publicly. Yes, there was an America First, Kansas First rally held last Friday in the KCK Church that afforded us that constitutional right. I attended and participated in this peaceful and uplifting event. Grassroots patriot candidates and community leaders all had the opportunity to speak and give us more hope for tomorrow. I would kindly request a public apology from the commissioner that referred to us as extremists. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, that has completed our general public comments.
Okay, thank you very much. We will now move to the consent agenda. If the clerk will please read the consent agenda items.
Item number 1, consider approving the September 8th, 2022 business session minutes. And item number 2, request for proposal, RFP number 2022-047. Consider authorizing a contract with EMS Management and Consultants, EMS, MC, for ambulance and EMS medical billing and collection services at a cost not to exceed $600,000 for a period of 12 months with the option to renew for 2 additional 12-month periods.
Okay, is there a commissioner who would like to have one of these items considered separately?
Yes, I would like item number 2. I just have one quick question.
All right, so noted. That will be considered separately. Is there any additions or corrections to the minutes? If not, do I hear a motion to approve? Ms. Allenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to approve the September 8th, 2022 business session minutes.
Hanslick, second.
Allenbrand made the motion. Hansick seconded the motion to approve the minutes as presented. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. I have 7 votes in favor. Motion carried. Your question, Commissioner.
Yes, I just wanted clarification from staff that this was covered under the budget, that the 2022 budget, and that this is just an authorization of this expenditure.
Mr. Davis, can you speak to that?
Yes, Paul Davis, Department of Director, Emergency Services. This is included within our budget. We account for up to that expenditure.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted the public to understand that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone present who would like to speak to this item? If not, it's back before the commission. A motion is in order. Ms. Allenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to authorize a contract with EMS Management and Consultants, EMS/MC, for ambulance and EMS medical billing and collection services at no cost to exceed $600,000 for a period of 12 months with the option to renew for 2 additional 12-month periods.
Myers, second.
Allenbrand made the motion. Meyer seconded the motion to authorize the contract as recommended. Any further questions or discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. I have 7 votes in favor. Motion carried. Moving to the action agenda, next item.
Item number 3, consider approving an early termination agreement with the Board of County Commissioners of Johnson County, Kansas, and Evergreen Living Innovations, Incorporated, with a payment of $29 million of general fund reserves, countywide support funds.
Mr. Thompson.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Maury Thompson, Deputy County Manager. As you recall, the board considered this item last week, and we continued it till this week for some further work on this issue. Unless the board requests, I'm not going to go back through that complete history I did last week, but essentially pick up from where we left last week. As we know, we have a current contractual obligation to Evergreen Living Innovations for 5 additional years, and I want to correct that. On the record, I have seen references to 2 years. It is 5 years on our current contractual obligation. That equates to $4 million. So $4 million of the proposed $29 million allocation is for our current contractual obligation to the organization. Secondly, there was a reference to the escalation of the projected cost to the county of this. I did go back and pull the information from the slide. I believe there was a reference to $15 million. The slide said $20 million, so I want to clarify that as well. Secondly, let's go to the, I think it's important to repeat the objectives
that we were trying to accomplish here. Referring to your briefing sheet at the bottom of page 1, I lay out two primary objectives, as I state. First is to position ELI to continue to provide exemplary care to those in need with limited or no means to provide for themselves, consistent with this county's history and longstanding commitment to do so, whether that be as a direct department of county government or through a contractual relationship with Evergreen Living. Secondly, it also provides the means for ELI to become self-sufficient, ending ongoing county subsidy and further financial support. First was primarily Evergreen's objective, although we share in that, I believe. And secondly is more our objective to end this ongoing relationship. So as I stated last week, the agreement contains very clear language attempting to ensure full understanding of the parties that with this termination and payment, further subsidy and any potential future liability shall cease. The reason I emphasize that is I wasn't here when the current contract was agreed to, but as I've gotten involved with this over the last few years, there seems to be a misunderstanding, if you will, about the intent. So as I worked on this, I wanted to be clear that we stated what the intent was between the parties. Lastly, before we go to questions, Chairman, there were two issues that you really directed staff to go back and look at. And that was one, language in the termination agreement ensuring that the purposes of these funds would be used for building for Evergreen. And secondly, additional protections for us in terms of a payment schedule. When we left our conversation last week, we began talking about a payment schedule. As I contemplated that, staff had a different idea of how to achieve that objective, and you'll see those changes in the markup version as well as the clean copy that we've given you this morning, again, attempting to address both of those issues. So to the first one, I'd refer you to page 1, item number 2, where we have added language that says these funds shall only be used by Evergreen or any future subsidiary for the operation or construction of an elder care facility to be located in the county, which focuses on assistance to the indigent. The county will not be obligated to pay Evergreen any additional amounts under this agreement or the 2007 agreement. Secondly, I will address your attention to page 2. You will see, and I believe that is a new B, C, and D, fairly extensive language laying out the concept of an escrow account. Again, accomplishing the county's objective of termination, one payment, and with this agreement, we end the relationship. But the board also expressed concerns about making sure the payments, again, were used for the right purpose and they were paid accordingly. So we believe this scenario does just that. It establishes an escrow agent to hold those funds and pay out as appropriate. We've also added additional strengthening of the indemnification language for the county as well. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Well, thank you very much. To an earlier comment, discussions in regards to Evergreen Living have been going on for at least 2 years, I'm aware of. And information during that time has been presented to the commission. I know when we looked at the usage, potential usages of the new Century office building, the old Sprint building, Evergreen was one of those along with some other county agencies, and that was determined not to be a viable option. And I know that Evergreen's board had looked at property in the south part of Olathe, again, a year or two ago. So this is not a new discussion. This is not a new issue for the county commission. The funds, as I understand it, from this project will come from reserves that have been established within the budget. And those reserves are part of the federal government program, monies that came to us within the last year. So those reserves are there for a purpose, and that's to use those. We do not need to make an adjustment in the budget because the reserves are already there. So, Ms. O'Hara, you have a question?
Yes, I have several, and I think that when we're looking at a $29 million budget expenditure, that there should be a robust discussion because we are a board that has a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers. Mr. Thompson, in our budget documents, there was a line item for Evergreen, and that amount was $15 million. Is that correct?
I'm not sure what number you're referring to.
It was under the county manager's statements, and it was a line item, and it stated $15 million. And $15 million is what has been discussed for some time. Also, on the ARPA funds, that this is in the community support services, and this was under our $60 million miscellaneous expenditures. And I would just want the public to understand that our opinion of $60 million is miscellaneous. And under that, the $15 million was noted by the county manager. The other thing from the discussion last week, Evergreen's business plan currently is for them to have 60 to 65% of their beds available for Medicaid. Is that correct?
Correct. 2/3.
And with the new business plan, this will be cut down to 30 to 35%. Is that correct?
I am going to ask Evergreen to respond to that.
Okay.
They would be better prepared.
Some other questions that I have. The money, the $60 million, that came from ARPA and then went through the sheriff's department to reimburse us for salaries paid, and then those dollars dropped down into the general fund. Is that correct?
These funds that we're talking about right now, as part of the 85 million, I'm referring back to the framework that I called it, the slide. Yes, that is lost revenue.
Okay.
And public's salary, public safety salary, which would be emergency medical service, the sheriff's office, public health salaries, et cetera.
Okay, thank you. And then have we worked up numbers as to what it would cost to rehab the building that Evergreen currently occupies?
I am going to defer to Mr. Waters, or someone else to put you on the spot here. Joe?
Joe Waters, Assistant County Manager. Commissioner, the most recent information that we have was that in the short term, I believe about $9 million would be needed to do the immediate repairs, and a projected, if the intention were to remain in the building, not to make improvements, but just to in terms of remodeling the interior or changing configurations or anything like that. The estimate from, 2 years ago was $26 million. We certainly, of course, in the construction market being what it is today, that could be escalated by maybe 30%.
And this building was built in 1996, correct?
Yes.
And do we have also numbers as to what improving the parking lot, is that included in the $9 million and the $26 million?
I believe that's included in the 26.
Okay, and so is the 26 inclusive of the 9 million, or is it 9 million plus the 26?
That is inclusive of the 9.
Okay, so it's a total of 26 million, and we have to provide this facility to Evergreen until their building is ready, correct?
Correct.
Is that correct?
The current agreement with Evergreen expires December 31, 2007.
2027.
Thank you.
Okay, you went back in time.
I went back to the original contract date
Okay,
there, yeah.
all right. So we have to maintain this building somehow until 2027, because it's going to take at least 3 years to build this facility, because they need to buy property, they need to draw up plans, they need to go through all the approval process, et cetera, et cetera. Is that correct?
So again, I hesitate to comment on them, so please correct me or step to the podium here, any representatives of Evergreen.
It's a good estimate.
My understanding is 2 to 2.5 years.
But in the construction industry, from which I am from, the rule of thumb, it costs more and it takes longer. And so we have to maintain this facility. So a 3-year to anticipate that we're probably going to be providing this facility for another 3 years. So that means that there would be only 2 years left on this lease. So I don't understand why we can't just honor this lease to the end, 2027. There's only 2 additional years that we would have to provide this facility to Evergreen. And then we are free from the contractual agreement, and so are they. And so now you're coming to the board and asking for $29 million. And this just, it's just too big of an ask, in my opinion. And we do have alternatives. And the fact that we have a 26-year-old building that is falling down around our ears is very concerning to me, because I hear, well, the standards, there was more like residential construction. Well, I'm telling you, there's a lot of homes in this county that are 26 years old and older, and they're not falling down around the ears of the owners. So it's just that this is a lot of, in my opinion, bad decisions along the way, and I just cannot, in good conscience, whether it's federal money, whether it's property tax money, whatever pot of money that you're taking it out of, it comes from the taxpayer's pocket. And this is a fiduciary responsibility on our part. And I just, in good conscience, cannot support this. And I don't have the documentation of the cost of tearing down the building, of the cost of building a new building for the health clinic. I mean, this is just, the $29 million is just the beginning. And if at the end of, as they're building the building, if $29 million is not adequate, they're still in our facility. And they're going to come back and say, we can't finish this project. We can't finish it. We need more money. I mean, we are not going to be off the hook with this agreement. I just have so many concerns. And I believe that as a commissioner, I need more information, because the county health clinic is in the other half of that building, and that's going to be a tremendous expense to the county. So I would just ask that this item be continued until next week, and so that we can get more information and that the commissioners can be more informed. But that's just my request.
So if I could, Chairman, I'll just make 2 brief comments here. I don't believe you've heard, at least me, suggest for a moment that $29 million is not a significant amount of money. I acknowledge, obviously, that is. When you talk about the building, though, I think that gets a little more nuanced or complicated. There's a shared power plant between those 2 wings. We are at risk, if that fails, to have significant impacts on a skilled nursing facility. So you talk about this path of trying to Band-Aid, if you will, that building together for maybe as long as 5 years. That could have extensive costs to it. So I understand and can hear we could do that analysis. To the final question, comment that I would make, I think I was very clear last week. This is a policy decision for this body to make. What I hear you suggesting is we have a current contract that expires, let it expire, and we are done. We would make no ongoing commitment. That is a choice this body could make.
Yeah.
May I respond, please, Mr.
Go right
Chairman?
ahead. You have a
Okay,
question.
so, but the playing field is being totally changed by their business plan that currently they want to provide, and that's their goal, is to provide 2/3 of their beds for Medicaid patients. But with their new business plan, that it will be 30 to 35%, because as per your comments, their current business plan does not work.
Right.
And they are suffering also on the shortages of staff, because as I understand from last week, they only have 70 clients at this time, and they have a capacity I've read 112, but I heard 120 last week. So this facility is having real issues at this point. And I am hearing from the community that there are other alternatives, and I think that we need to just take time, take a breath, step back, and see if we can actually move forward with our goal of providing for Medicaid patients in a more fiscally responsible manner. So I think we just need to step back, take a breath, and on that power plant, we have to maintain this for at least 3 years because they're going to be there. So we're talking about an additional 2 years. So again, I just think we need to step back, take a breath, reanalyze this, and listen to the community and see if there's not a better way.
Mr. Thompson, let me go back to the numbers that have been presented. The $29 million includes the $4 million subsidy that the county would have to pay going forward. Is that right?
That's correct.
So the number really is $25 million, and we just heard that it would cost $26 million to replace that building at its current location. So whether it's now or whether it's later, those costs are going to be there. The alternative that's basically been presented is that we get out of this business, and so at the end of '27, our subsidy would cease, and Evergreen Living and their patients would not have a place to go. And so I think that's a issue that we need to recognize. And I would remind the commissioners that one of our priorities for this year is to provide for our vulnerable population. And so I think that needs to be considered. Other questions or comments, Ms. Allenbrand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have several comments that I want to make. And you know, when I was sworn in, when I was elected, we had choices of different training sessions that we can attend. And Commissioner Myers and myself attended almost a whole day training session on Evergreen, the contract, you know, different case scenarios of how this could work out. So it was very in-depth. And, you know, I also want to address, we do have a contract. There's nobody up here, I think, at the time the contract was signed that was part of the contract. And things are different now compared to what they were and the commissioners that signed that. So we have an obligation to that contract. And I don't know, there has always been a capital improvement, CIP, capital improvement plan, and this building has always been on that from the time I came on board, and even before I was elected, I saw that. So it's not something new. I don't believe, this was my field of work. So I grew up in this industry, and believe me, Evergreen does not want to stay in that building. It's not built right. And, you know, they have been looking at, I attended their event Saturday night, and they are looking at property. So they have property they're looking at. They have a plan in place. The building was built, back in the day that building was built, it was built more residential. And it's different than being in a home. You have somebody in there that's living there 24/7, 365 days a year. So the building has to be built that way. The building wasn't built that way. So the reality is, to go in there, the building, there's just no way that you could go in and redo that building. And so I believe, every budget that I've been, and I've built communities all over, have always been on budget, and you work with your timeline of your construction company. I know they have reached out to several people. I also want to point out, yes, their business plan has to change. They still are going to reach that population, which that is a priority for us here, is to take care of our residents in Johnson County. And it's my understanding, unless something's changed, they have never turned anybody down that lives in Johnson County to move into that building. They also have become very creative. They have a hospice program. They have an ongoing teaching of resident-based services that's been put into place. They've received 5-star rating and get higher Medicare reimbursements than any other community out there. So they have to change their business plan. And we have a contract obligation of our previous commission. This is something that has been on the capital improvement plan. It's been discussed. It's not new to the budget. It's been on the budget line from day one. We've talked about this. You know, I feel bad that some of the constituents here, the audience here, doesn't have all the information, but we've been looking at this for some time, and we have to move forward, and I don't believe that they're gonna stay in there any longer than 2 years, because they need to move. They need to have different facilities, so, thank you.
I'm going to ask this, is there a representative from Evergreen Living who can speak to the status of the negotiations that they've been involved in? Chris or Roger?
Chris Osborne, CEO at Evergreen. As far as negotiations go, we've gone about as far as we can without additional funding. So yes, we've been talking with the construction manager. We've been looking for land. We've had Action Pack consultants that we worked with to put together a business plan, a business model, and pro forma over the past 2 years. So we've been working toward this goal of a new building for several years now.
Okay. Mr. Templin, any comments that you'd like to make? One item that was just briefly mentioned, and that was the escrow account and the agreement, who would be handling that escrow account?
Excuse me, under the escrow account agreement is UMB Bank would be handling it as the escrow, which requires a certification from the city manager that we are ready to we've either pulled a building permit or that we have a commitment for financing to construct the facility. And the construction, alternatively, if it's not construction of a new facility, then it would be a remodel, but basically to put us in a position where we can get into a new facility.
Okay. Ms. Hensley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate Commissioner Allenbrand's comments and wanted to just add a couple of things. First of all, we have been talking about this situation since I've been in office, and certainly even before. The second issue is that our aging population in Johnson County is increasing, and we are going to continue to need more quality, available, accessible facilities for people, especially for people who may not have the financial means to stay at or live in some of the more expensive facilities. Evergreen is top-notch. Every time I've gone over there, it is a happy, clean, terrific place. The residents are very happy to be there, and they're treated with such dignity, no matter what their financial situation is. And yes, as commissioners, we have an obligation to really think long and hard about the amount of money. It is a lot of money. At the same time, we also have the obligation to think about the future and to think about whether people in Johnson County, as they age, will have options to continue to live here in their community. Not everybody can afford a fancy long-term care facility. And I think this is an investment in the future of our community to allow our seniors and aging population to have a quality option. So I'm very supportive of moving ahead with this. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, Ms. Fast?
Yes, well, where our current mental health center was, that was Johnson County's nursing home for decades. So Johnson County has seen this as a priority for years, and then 20 years, well, it's not quite, the previous commissioners, wanted to kind of move from the priority of inpatient, not inpatient, but long-term skilled nursing care to more of a, larger model that Evergreen has today. when we talk about how much you will provide with Medicaid, you're going to provide Medicaid community-based services. That is not counted as a bed. And so that is also additional Medicaid persons, correct? And that's what most continuums have. So it's not quite, that's not true to say it's only 30%, because you'll probably have another 20, 30, 40% of community-based Medicaid. Chris, am I on track with that?
Yeah, our goal is always to maximize the number of Medicaid residents that we have, whether that's through Medicaid program or the Home and Community-Based Services program.
Yeah, you just don't call them Medicaid bed. So I think you could have probably up to 70, 80% because you're going to have a continuum and Medicaid provides for different levels of care, and that's pretty typical. With this contract, we're saying they have to build, that if you found a place to remodel, that is not an option?
I believe we've covered that in this agreement by saying that it's either for construction of a new facility or renovation of an existing facility.
So that could be, if you found...
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that is not
the right
off...
property that would work with. Those have not been made known to us at this point. We certainly have looked for that. But if there was an opportunity to make something work, there would be a much more efficient use of resources that would put us on a better position to provide more Medicaid assistant, more Medicaid qualified services, which is the goal, actually the mission. It comes from our articles of our organization, which to the extent that it's useful, this originally was a division of Johnson County government, was the nursing center. And in 2002, the county commission decided, you know what, we don't like the way we handled this. We're going to go ahead and create an entity to take it over. That's where the Friends of Johnson County Nursing came from, which is the genesis of Evergreen. And that ran for 5 years until we did the contract in 2007. And at that time, the idea was, well, in order to make this work, we're going to have to try to attract additional investment and do other things and give us some permanence on the contract. So the idea was that 20-year contract would give people who might donate to us a recognition that the county supports this, and this is part of the county and the county's mission to do that. And the idea from that was to eventually get to the point of self-sufficiency. But Medicaid dollars, the way they are, it's been impossible to really get that way. And
I
I think
also
it's a
highlight, we have an expanded Medicaid, and that's another impact on this, on the Evergreen. So when we, as a state, make these policy decisions, we impact those who are vulnerable, families who are struggling.
Well, Roger, thank you for that explanation. This operation was a county department before the time period that you mentioned, and that decision in 2007 was to move the project further away from a county department, but still with a $1 million a year subsidy payment. And so here we are on the verge of taking another step and ending that relationship with the county, which I think is a good step to take. Ms. O'Hara?
Thank you. So I want to be clear that last week it was stated that the business plan currently is 60 to 65%, and going forward, because the 60 to 65% of Medicaid, it's not a viable business plan, and that you will be paring that back to 30 to 35%. And I also want to let the public know that everyone on this board supports providing the opportunities for Medicaid patients to be housed in Johnson County. And what I have been told and what I have asked for a census of what Medicaid beds are available in Johnson County. I'm simply asking to step back, get more information before we make this investment of $29 million of county money, taxpayer money, into this project. Is there a better way? Can Evergreen partner with some existing facilities and not need this enormous amount of money? I'm just asking us to step back, look a little further, and see if there aren't some viable partnerships that are available. And then back to my core concern is that we have a 26-year-old building that has not been maintained properly and now is going to cost a ton of money if we rehab it. But if we rehab it, it means that we don't have to build a new building, which I asked for the cost of what the health clinic would be, and I haven't received that yet. I mean, this is just the beginning. This $29 million is just the beginning. We have to go forward. Evergreen has to be successful in getting their facility, and then we have to go forward with, if we follow staff's recommendations, and this $29 million is part of staff's recommendations, we're going to have demolition of that building, and then we're going to have the cost of a new building. This is a lot of money, and are we really doing this with our eyes open to the bottom line to see if we can accomplish providing Medicaid beds for the indigent, which everyone wants that, but at a more cost-effective manner? That's all I'm asking.
So, Chairman, if I may, to respond briefly to those comments, I want to correct something that you said, Commissioner, that their current business plan requires them to serve 2/3%. The contract requires them to. If they were developing a business plan, again, that business plan would not work. They're required to do that by the contract. Then I would ask Chris if he'd like to respond to their business plan, the percent of Medicaid they plan to serve going forward, as well as your Medicaid bed question. I think as you and I have talked, that gets to be a pretty difficult question to answer. But Chris, so I'll give it to you. Medicaid? Yeah, your plan to serve at least a minimum of...
Speak into the microphone, please, or get closer.
Yeah, so yeah, looking at the percent of Medicaid right now, minimum 30%, we're looking to optimize that. We're looking at the home and community-based services, which would help increase that. We're looking at an endowment, which the interest earned on an endowment would then increase that amount. Like I said, it's just not financially feasible at 65% without a subsidy to be able to continue that level. So we will look for and find other means to increase that percentage of Medicaid.
Okay.
How many beds are you proposing in your new facility?
It's around 120.
Okay, so it'd still be 120. Okay, so if it's 30%, then you would be providing 36 beds for Medicaid. Okay, thank you.
Well, let me repeat again. This item and the information that's presented is not new to this board. This has been a 2 or 3 year project, and much of the data that's been requested has been presented, has been discussed. Alternatives have been looked at, and for whatever reason, this one comes forward as the best alternative that we have reviewed. And so, other questions? Ms. Allenbrand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to, because I know Commissioner O'Hara had a question on partnership, and I did reach out to Mr. Thompson and Mr. Osborne, and they do have several names of different companies that are known statewide that possibly going into partnerships with hospice and maybe some of the training program with resident-based services. So I believe that they are researching what they can and how they can partnership with others. Also, I would make a comment that this building, the way it's built, they're going to be able to build something that will open it up to more of maybe with people with memory care and be able to serve that. And Mr. Chair, when you're ready, I do have a motion.
Okay, well, we'll receive public comment before that. Are there any other questions? Staff, Mr. Ashcraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have a question I'm going to direct to the county councilor. I had the opportunity to visit with her briefly yesterday. There seemed to be, I mean, this is good discussion, but kind of boils down to 3 issues that related to Eli or Evergreen. The second is the residents, and then the third is the fiduciary responsibilities. And on the fiduciary issues, I wanted to ask the county councilor for her perspective. In this circumstance, which is, since I've been on the board, is fairly unusual, as best as I can recall, this is the only time in which the county is, and I'm going to use the term gifting, a significant amount of money to a not-for-profit, or for that matter, any entity, but a not-for-profit. So I wanted to ask the county councilor, Ms. Trent, if technically, is it legal for us to give, whether you use 29 million or 25 million, or whatever the amount, in this manner?
Mr. Chair, Chief Counsel Peg Trent. Thank you for that question. I know that Commissioner Ashcraft, we had discussed this yesterday. The agreement does address the issue and legal concerns about use of public funds for a private entity. In this particular case, it is the $29 million, a portion of it, and how to designate it deals with a settlement of the underlying agreement that the county has with Evergreen. And as through the discussions, there is a continuation, regardless of building a new facility, an obligation of the county for the next 5 years of $1 million per year. In addition to maintaining, and also, as you heard from Assistant Manager Joe Waters, about monies that would be necessary to maintain it. So, in addition, it is the intent that there was included in the agreement, the revised agreement you have before you, and I think it was passed out to the commissioners prior to the start of the meeting, and I think a portion of it was also uploaded as well, but did not contain certain language. But we've included language now that resolve the issue of the public funds, and that these funds shall only be used by Evergreen or any future subsidiary, so if they were to sell out, to make sure for the operation or construction of an elder care facility to be located in Johnson County, which focuses on assistance to indigent. This language also, is my understanding in speaking with their attorney, mirrors with their mission, if you will, as the nonprofit of Evergreen to continue. And that those funds, even if they should discontinue, would still only be used for these purposes in which you are providing those funds for public interest. And the key words, so we have the settlement and we have the indigency. So you're continuing to provide that. The Constitution for the state of Kansas does outline monies being used for benevolent institutions and for public health, as well as for economic development here of an infrastructure that is necessary in the community of Johnson County. So to answer that question and getting back to your fiduciary duty and legal, these public funds in the court has given broad discretion as to how those public funds could be used, as long as it is coming back to some public purpose. And I believe that has been outlined in this agreement, articulated by the speakers through the briefing sheet, attempting to making sure that that is firmed up. In addition, I would highlight, at the direction of this commission, there's also been language to ensure at different points that these funds are being utilized for construction, and that this project, it is the intent for this project to move forward. So I believe the assurances are within this amendment for this commission and their fiduciary duty.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Trent, thank you for that explanation. I would like to see something in writing to that effect, and I do understand that a portion of it will be to settle the existing contract. That makes sense. I'm still struggling a little bit with the additional funds, the $20 million approximately, or $25 million, because when you look at the provision under item 2B, it talks about $19 million being in escrow, which has been discussed and makes a lot of sense. But the way it's read is that $19 million is paid out the earlier of October 1st, 2024, or when financing is secured or a building permit is secured. So if no financing or building permit is secured before then, that money's still paid out. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Ashcraft, that is correct. However, as I noted, there is a clause in paragraph 2 that outlines that those monies, even if they receive them, shall only be used for this purpose, and that purpose being elderly care and also facilitating for the indigent.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Anything else, Mr. Thompson?
No, sir.
Okay. At this time, if there are individuals who wish to speak to this item, we will recognize you. Your comments need to be limited to 2 minutes. Is there anyone present
Chair.
who would like to speak to this item?
Chair, we have signed up. We have Scott Hetty. Scott Hetty.
Good morning. My name is Scott Hetty. I'm from Prairie Village, Kansas. I've been a taxpayer here since 1999. Been a banker, commercial banker for 40 years. And I'm currently the chairman of the board of Villa St. Francis, which is a competitor of Evergreen. We're a good competitor. We're friendly competitors. We help each other when we need help. Our business model is very similar to theirs. And when you're talking about the building, you're talking about 65% Medicaid. We're running 75% Medicaid. And I want to give you a little bit of context of the industry overall, just so you know from our perspective. Nothing derogatory at all about Evergreen. So we run 75% Medicaid. We're a mission of the Archdiocese in Northeast Kansas. Our best year we ever had was 2019. We broke even. Our 990 will show that we made $1 million, but that's because we're fundraising. Since 2019, of course, we all know COVID happened, and there are 3 major problems in the industry today that a new building isn't going to fix. The first is that COVID has caused family members to not want to put other family members in a nursing home. They did it for 18 months, and they had family members who are dying without other family members present. And that condition is still in the memory of most of the public, and so they're apprehensive about putting people in a nursing home today. We ran 95% occupancy in 2019. Today, we run 82% occupancy. Evergreen is running 86% occupancy. We called them the other day. We called a number of other nursing homes in the area, and if I take all of those and add them up, the industry of those 8 or 9 homes, it's about 84% occupancy. The reality is, in Johnson County, we are overbedded. There are beds for people who need a Medicaid, who are on Medicaid and need care. The second issue that we have in the industry overall is, I'm not going to get through all 3.
I'm sorry, you're going to have to conclude shortly. Yes.
Okay, so it's COVID, and then sorry about that.
Okay.
I'll just.
All right, thank you.
Now we have Mary Blake. Mary Blake.
My name is Mary Blake. I live in Olathe. Far be it from me to understand the Byzantine workings of county government. Based on all the new information and all the discussion that's been going on, I do want to comment on a few things. This building has been falling apart for 15 years and has not been maintained. What kind of care are we giving to our senior citizens in such a facility? It's been said that they're all happy. I don't know how you can be happy with leaking windows, and Lord else knows what's going on in there. The $29 million buyout is only the beginning, because there are some questions that I would like to ask. Okay, if we do tear down the building, how much is that going to cost? Do we really know the cost of that? How much is it going to cost to build a new building if that's the avenue we take? with the supply chain issues and the cost of construction materials and inflation, have we even thought about that? What's the total cost of this whole project? Is this the way you manage your own money? I'm guessing not, because you have a limited household budget. But here you seem to have forgotten the basic principles of money management. Why? Could it be that you believe you have an unending supply of taxpayer money? Well, that's running out. Most of the families of Johnson County aren't here to complain about the gross mismanagement of their tax dollars. Why? Because they're so busy holding down 2 or more jobs to keep up with inflation, and also pay for another property tax hike that you recently passed. But they are angry, they're fed up, and they've had enough, and they will vote in November. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Now I have Steve Snitz. Steve Snitz.
Steve Snitz, Prairie Village. I'm a newbie to this. I haven't studied it for years like you guys, so all I can do is give you my impressions, but I do want to do that. First of all, I think it's a gross injustice, this 2-minute crap. The gentleman that just spoke before, who is a competitor of Evergreen, is an expert in the field. We need to hear what he has to say. My general comments are, as Mr. Ashcraft pointed out, the 3 issues, the building, the contract, and how to go forward from here. I only came prepared to talk about the building. It's deteriorated 26 years. It seems like to me, it seems like it's been mismanaged, but then we hear from this commissioner that the people love it there, it's clean and all that. So if my hair wasn't already falling out, I'd be pulling it out because I can't figure this out. What actually is going on here. But I do agree with Commissioner O'Hara that we have rushed into this from our perspective. You studied it for years, and yet we're still in a mess. Okay? My mom had Alzheimer's. She stayed at Village Shalom. That was her last stop after 4 or 5. They had Medicaid beds. There are Medicaid beds around the county. So to rush headlong and try to find, try to do something about this particular solution, maybe the situation really is that the county needs to look at funding a deserving population that needs this service, but not managing it. They don't seem to be able to manage it. Okay, that's my impression, and I'm going to stick with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I have John Anderson. John Anderson.
John Anderson, Prairie Village. Can we say fiduciary responsibility? Can we say that? Those 2 words. The fact that the residents are happy, or that Evergreen doesn't do a good job of taking care of them. That really isn't the issue. The issue is we've got a building that's 26 years old that is half the life of our house, and you want to tear it down. Staff recommends this. Are these people in the staff, are they qualified construction-wise, building-wise? I don't know. Commissioner, you suggest that possibly the audience isn't totally aware of the details. Well, I've heard so many numbers from 15 to 20 to 24 to 25 to 29. I might suggest that the council or the commission isn't aware of the details. If this case had been presented to me in my MBA class and I responded as I've heard today, I'd have an F. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I have Rodney Whittington.
You guys have heard from me before. I'm Rodney from Lenexa, Rodney Whittington from Lenexa. A couple concerns that have come up is patients will be moved. If the lease would end, well, they're going to move whether there's a new building or the lease ends. And as has been stated, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of available Medicaid beds in the Johnson County area. So that clearly is not a concern. a remodel would be quicker and cheaper. You know, in my consulting profession, we have recommended a lot of joint ventures, and that's in cities and that's in rural areas that there's just not enough staff to go around. I don't care how pretty of a building you build or, you know, where you build it, you just can't find staffing to meet the needs. So combining forces, combining buildings, making it where staff can provide good care and not shut down half a building, because that's essentially what will happen. You'll build a new building, half the wings will be shut down because you can't staff it, and the thing that ought to be done is to you know, make staffing sustainable, and you know, that might be something that you could consider funding as a county, is nurse education, CNA education, et cetera, because right now there just aren't enough staff to take care of people. And 67% Medicaid in a new building would not be sustainable at all from a business model. There's just no way that would work. Medicaid is a built-in loss for an operation, and to do that with the weight of a brand-new mortgage would not be sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I have Mary Bibler. Mary Bibler.
Good morning. I'm Mary Bibler from Olathe, Kansas. I also am a trustee of Villa St. Francis, serving a high population of Medicaid. As Scott mentioned, our industry is in crisis. It's in crisis from a nursing perspective. There aren't enough nurses, so building a new facility is not going to fix that. We've got a great relationship with Evergreen. We help each other out when needed. I really want to address a few things. One, if you buy out their contract, that's fine. Building a new facility is where many of us have issues, because there is capacity in Johnson County, but there aren't nurses. So maybe you change your model of how to serve Medicaid. Fund grants for those of us that are struggling to stay afloat that serve a high population of Medicaid. Offer training. We need more nurses. We need more CNAs. You know, some of the comments about, you know, granting this money to, or however you're funding Evergreen to build a new facility, has that been open to a competitive bid? You know, you're giving it to Evergreen, you're buying out their contract, but then you're giving them money to build a new facility. Has that gone out for bid? There's probably other operators that might be interested. Again, just there's ways to serve our Medicaid patients. You know, we're operating in a 50-year-old building. We're looking at renovating it because we have to. Much cheaper, much cheaper. Half of what you're saying it will cost to renovate a 120-bed facility that's half as old as ours. So I encourage you to spend more time before you rush to a vote. There are other alternatives. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Now I have Gary Morgan. Gary Morgan.
Gary Morgan, Shawnee. Just simply one question. For 26 years, who has been, the public's going to want to know, who has been responsible for the maintenance and upkeep or not of this building? I think that's a fair question. And also, as many weeks as I've been coming to these, you know, we get these 5-2, 5-2, 5-2. Today, if we get a 5-2 vote, if you take a vote today, I thank you in advance, because we're going to replace a lot of the seats that are sitting up here today, and the public is taking notice, and the public does not understand this issue. You may understand it, but the public does not. This is a time, as another commissioner has suggested, we need to step back, think about what we're doing, because this is a lot of money. Even if it came from the federal government as a free handout, it's a lot of money, and people are paying attention. I've walked in a lot of parades lately for various people, and I tell you what I hear coming from the sidelines. It's sort of in jest, but it's like, what are you going to do to reduce my taxes? What are you going to do to reduce my taxes? They're saying that in jest because we're political candidates, but that's what this county is thinking about. So think about that before you decide to act today or not. I advise you do not act today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Now I have Judy Jackson. Judy Jackson. Do we have Judy Jackson? We will move on to Low Fields. Low Fields.
Different subject. First, I commend all 7 of you for coming to a marvelous decision on funding the Sheriff's Department and increasing his salary. I don't know if it's commensurate with average salary across the U.S. of from $125,000 to $144,000, I think, but bravo that you hear your constituents and you go to battle for the issues. I really commend that. I love the American way. It's beautiful. And you all are different, but you can come to a consensus. Wonderful, wonderful. It shows you work together well. We have a tremendous issue in our nation, and unfortunately in our county as well, and that is the voting machines. These voting machines need to be replaced badly. We have midterms coming, and the voting machines can, with a simple thumb drive inserted, flip votes. That's not acceptable. We're not a banana republic. Something needs to be done, or if you want to go all paper ballots, bravo, that would solve the situation, but we have a tremendous issue that needs to be addressed. And thank you for deeply considering that.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
I would just make this note, the civil service pay plan for the sheriff is a later item, so the item that's before us is in regards to the Evergreen contract. Other speakers?
Chair, that completes the signups.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this item? Yes, sir.
I'm Phil Bauer. I'm from Leawood in the 1st District. And just to reiterate what several other people have mentioned, we really need to take a step back and look at this further. Several people have mentioned that there are other options. There are other beds available within Johnson County that can handle this clientele. We really need to look at that as an option. Are there other options in addition to that? So my proposal to you, don't even make a motion to vote on this today. Instead, let's take a longer look at it. Let's see what the other options are so that we can solve this problem that's happened over the last 26 years of mismanagement of this facility. So please don't vote on this today. Look at it, take a longer look, and let's come up with a better solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there someone else? Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. I'm Rochelle from Overland Park. I work at Azria Health of Olathe, and I currently believe there is no need for an additional facility due to several other communities around Johnson County having availability for Medicaid pending recipients. Our community alone has open beds that offer hemodialysis, wound care, memory care, therapy services, and it's a great facility to place your loved ones. And I just urge that you conduct a survey of the current open beds in Johnson County, because creating a new facility is, one, not only reckless to our community, but we don't have staff. We, let alone, don't have people to care for our loved ones. So don't be negligent and just consider this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, there was someone else in the back.
Linda Gallagher.
Good morning. I'm Linda Gallagher from Lenexa, 2nd District. I serve on the Evergreen Board, and I'm the current secretary of the board. I've been on the board going on 3 years now, and as a board, we have worked, studied, and discussed this issue for the entire time I've been on the board, and I understand way before that. This is not a new issue. It is not being rushed into. The issues with the current building are very well documented, and I believe that this is a very good option for the board and for the county both to address this issue of the county's obligation to its most vulnerable older citizens who are, don't have the means to pay for their much-needed long-term care, and it's the best option for Evergreen Living as well. One of the reasons I joined the board, two of the reasons I opted to join the board was Evergreen's reputation in the community as a provider of excellent health care for senior adults, and that is evidenced by its consistently receiving excellent ratings for its health care service on many scales, and that is very impressive year after year. I also wanted to join the board because of its mission to serve 65%, 65 beds of people who are on Medicaid. This would preserve the Evergreen's mission to continue that. Yes, we'll have to change the mix, but the mission will continue in a new facility that is much needed. I ask for your support for this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right. If not, the item is back before the commission, and a motion would be in order. I will just respond to some of the comments in general. I understand, some who might not have followed this issue over the last 2 or 3 years. There's been public discussion before the dais. We've had sessions related directly to it, and all that information is available and was available to the public to participate and learn about the issues. So, again, respectfully, we have gone for the last 2 or 3 years, not only from the county level, but as mentioned, from the board of directors level of Evergreen, to discuss and examine all options. And so that work has been completed. And at this time, I'll ask for a motion. Ms. Allenbrand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would also like to make one comment, just that, just hearing that the staff has not maintained this building. They've done the best that they can. There is sinking walls and other things that have to do with structure, not with maintenance. So I would invite you to go out and visit their community to see that. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll read the motion. I move the board approve an early termination agreement between the Board of County Commissioners of Johnson County and Evergreen Innovations Incorporated with the payment of $29 million general fund reserves, countywide support funds.
Hanslick, second.
Motion has been made by Allenbrand, seconded by Hanslick, to approve the recommendation as presented. Ms. O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, it is not Evergreen's responsibility to maintain that building. That is the county's responsibility. I want to make that very clear. Because we have not received an up-to-date census of beds available in Johnson County for Medicaid, because we have not received the costs for demolition of that building and estimates for cost for a new building for the Olathe Health Clinic, and because of the increase in cost, because the county manager indicated in her budget message that it was going to cost $15 million, and now we are at $29 million, I cannot in good conscience go forward with this. I again implore the commission to wait and review this further so that we can actually take into consideration professionals in the field have come up and given their comments that there are other options, and for us to just blindly go forward with a $29 million expenditure, to me, is extremely extremely irresponsible.
Okay, thank you. Other items, Ms. Hanslick?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to point out, because I think there's some misunderstanding, the building in which Evergreen currently resides houses other county functions too. It's not just a freestanding building. It also has the public health department in it. And if you've ever gone down there to get a flu shot or travel immunizations or whatever, it is not an appropriate place. It needs to be renovated regardless. So the building that we're talking about is not just Evergreen. It's public health, and I don't know if Mr. Waters has anything else to add to that, but we've been discussing this a long time, and really regardless of what happens to Evergreen, that building is going to have to be addressed, and we have been addressing it.
Okay, other comments, Mr. Ashcraft?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, change is hard, okay? And we've known that the Evergreen situation facility was going to have to change. Whether we would like it to change one way or another was up for debate. And that discussion has been going on because there is an expected termination to the agreement. And the question was, how do we deal with that change, and what does the future look like? And I said earlier, to me, there are three issues here. There's the Evergreen culture, society, management of the facility, and I think by almost any measure, it's to be commended. It has received high marks. It's evolved over the years, and I think has, I'm not going to say perfected the service, but they have greatly enhanced it. And our leaders in the aging services community in a lot of ways. And I believe they provide training and teaching services for other facilities, and I think they're recognized for that. The second group are the residents, and the census, as I understand it, is at or near a low for that facility. I haven't tracked that over time, but just listening to Mr. Osborne and others, that facility census, residents, patients, however you want to describe them, is at a low. And there were comments from the audience, which I had heard also, that for better or worse, COVID has changed the dynamic of people's interest in housing their family members in facilities like this. And it's changed a lot of things in our society, our community, but this one I think was particularly hit hard, especially early on in the pandemic. And that's going to be with us for a while. It may be with us forever in terms of how we view that relationship and those familial bonds. And then the third, which I raised, were the fiduciary issues. And I still have a number of questions because I want to see success. I want to see us move forward. In large measure for the fiduciary issues, in measure for Evergreen and the services it provides, but really for the residents. And the Evergreen model has worked, and I think it has worked well, but I'm not sure it is the only model that we should be actively considering. We have to make a decision because there will have to be change by 2027. But to build a new facility or to offer this largesse of $29 million is an option, and it's had a lot of thought and support by current board members and staff. But for myself on the dais, who has followed this issue for several years, because I remember having debates with Mr. Thompson in which the proposed buyout, for lack of a better term, was $8 million. Then it went up to 12 and 14 and 20, and then what's coming forward is 29. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, but it's a reality of how we're thinking versus the service we should be providing. So I would make a motion and ask that we at least give ourselves another week, Mr. Chairman. I would feel much better if I had a fuller understanding of the fiduciary components of it, but also the options that have been considered to make sure that we have covered those bases before we buy into a $25 or $29 million investment.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I may, I want to correct one comment Commissioner made. The reference to $8 million, again, that was the buyout of the current contract. That did not include building.
Yes. All right. I would simply offer this too, and it's not to be overlooked, but termination of this contract would save us $4 million of local tax dollars, local property tax dollars. So there is a savings to property taxpayers in Johnston County by taking this action. Ms. O'Hara.
Mr. Chairman, I would equate that to someone going out and buying $2,000 worth of clothes because they're 50% off. This is not, yes, we have an obligation of $800,000 a year, as I understand, and and that is built into the $29 million. Again, in the May documents from the county manager, in our budget documents, the estimate was $15 million. And when you back out the $4 million for the 5 years at $800,000, that is now $25 million, which is a huge increase over the $15 million. It's just too much, and we have the opportunity to access expertise within the community, that there are excess beds, that the real crisis in this community is not facilities, but it's staffing. And this is across our entire economy. It's staffing. It's not facilities. And here we are throwing $29 million at facilities. And this facility was the responsibility of the county, and yes, the Department of Health, which I have mentioned over and over and over, that clinic is in half of that building. And so if we tear it down, it will be required to build a new building for the Health Department Olathe Clinic. And we are not addressing this in these conversations. We do not have the estimates as to what this is going to cost. And it's just unconscionable to me that we have a 26-year-old building that is in such disrepair. I went over there shortly after I was sworn in 2021, and I was appalled, absolutely appalled.
Well, it's been spoken to before, and none of us were on the dais when the decision was made to build that building. I am told by those who were involved in that there was a limit of expenditure and that there was to be no expenditure beyond that amount of money. And even though there were other activities added to the building, there was no further money given to support those activities. So I think part of the problem with that building is that it was not properly designed, it was not properly paid for, and shortcuts were taken that have put us in this position. So if there's no other, yes.
I would like to second Commissioner Ashcraft's motion to continue this until next week.
Was that a motion you made, Mr. Ashcraft?
Yes, sir.
I'll recognize that. The motion is to defer for 1 week. Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Chair. This is a county responsibility, and this item has been one of the more challenging items for me in understanding all of the history, the responsibility that we have, and it's been an ongoing problem. I know this, no matter which option we take, it's going to be costly. And that's the thing I've struggled with the most. There are no easy outs. One of the issues or one of the options is something that I think is unacceptable, not having a facility. It's not an additional facility, it's a new or a replacement facility is what I'm seeing. The cost is, again, I see it being a costly option no matter what. The biggest thing that I see as an advantage for us as a commission, as a county, as an organization, as a community, is for us to not be in this business. And I think this provides the opportunity for us to no longer have to be worried about these types of contract situations that isn't something that I believe we should be doing, even though it's been a county responsibility for many, many years. And I think this is that opportunity to get out of that situation, which I think would be positive for our county and for this organization as a whole.
Well, I would simply make this comment on the amendment. If we had not had hours and days of previous discussion of this item, and again, it's been going on for at least 2 years, and commissioners have been granted opportunities to gather information. And so I think there is no reason to continue this for 1 week, and we should move ahead. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. O'Hara, did you have a comment?
I did not know about the $29 million price tag. So I think that is the big change in the mix. But I call the question.
All right, amendment is before us. Ms. Allenbrand.
I have one comment. My comment is I hope.
There's
There's
I-
no debate.
There's no further
Point of
comments or
Okay,
debate. It was
I will
called.
accept that. All right, the amendment is before us, yes or no, to continue for 1 week. My vote is no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Yes.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, yes.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, no.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, no.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, no. I have 4 votes to continue for 1 week, 3 opposed, so the motion carried. The item will be on the agenda next week. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We'll take a 5-minute break and come back for the balance of the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, at this time, we reconvene from our 5-minute recess. Next item is item number 4. Clerk, please read that item.
Resolution number WD 22-031, conduct a public hearing and consider creating Contract District Number 1 of Blue River Number 28, authorizing funds to provide sewers in the amount not to exceed $4,400,000, and consider authorizing a contract district financing agreement with FLUM 175 Investors, LLC.
Ms. Pekarik, public hearing is open.
Thank you, Chairman. Susan Pekarik with Wastewater. Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. I also have our Chief Engineer and our Deputy Chief Engineer for Planning and Development here with me today. So this request is for the consideration of the creation of a contract district within enlarging the Consolidated Main Sewer District, or the CMSD. This proposed district is located generally in the area of Flum and 175th Street within the city of Overland Park. So you have a map up here on the screen, and the area, the contract district area we're talking about here is this pink area. It's about 36 acres. And 175th runs along there, and Flum runs along the east side there. We haven't, as I mentioned last week, we actually haven't created any districts in a while, particularly any contract districts, so I thought I'd provide a little background on the district creation process. So sanitary sewer districts within the Consolidated Main Sewer District of Johnson County Wastewater Service Area are created via the petition process. And so 51% or more of the land area within a particular study area boundary must sign the petition in order for the district creation enlarging the CMSD to be considered. If 51% of the land area signing the petition cannot be accomplished, alternatives using smaller district boundaries may be possible. It just depends on the lay of the land. In addition, contract districts provide an option for properties to obtain sanitary sewers for developments should the 51% not be successful. So in the case of this particular area, the original study area actually extended from Flum to west of Lackman. And staff conducted a postcard survey at the time, and it showed that there was not enough interest in sewers at that time. A subsequent study showed a subsequent study area was also not successful at getting the 51% land area to sign. The developers have requested a contract district using the option where they pay 10% of the sewer project cost. As I said, the contract district shown here in pink, it's 36 acres, excuse me. The proposed district, the proposed sewer to serve the contract district is shown here on our map in red. And then these green lines you see here, so it would connect to an existing sewer. That's what the green lines represent on the map. This proposed sewer will also open up then an area of about 250 acres that will be able to be served by that as well. The estimated cost of this project is $4.4 million. The developer has paid their $440,000 in accordance with the policy. The developer's engineer will perform the design. Engineering bid and construction phase services will be performed by a Johnson County wastewater engineering consultant that will be selected through RFP process for our collection system engineering term and supply contract, which will be coming to you later this year, and then through a process that's been developed by Johnson County Wastewater and HDR, who is Johnson County Wastewater's program manager. Staff does recommend creation of Contract District 1 of Blue River 28 and authorizing the funds in the amount of $4,400,000 to provide sewers to the contract district, and authorizing the contract district financing agreement with FLUM 175 Investors, LLC. This project was included in the capital improvement plan and in the financial plan that was presented to the board most recently in June of this year. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions of Ms. Pekarik? Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. McCarrick, thank you for the summary and a little bit of perspective on this. I wanted to ask you to elaborate, if you would, a little bit on conversations and board policy discussions we had a number of years ago related to growth pays for itself. And just as by way of reminder, back in, I believe it was like 2012, 13, we had discussions about Blue River 21, and we had a presentation and made decisions to move forward with that. But after a couple of years, we found that our original estimates were off, so we had to extend the return on investment period from about 20 years to I think it was probably closer to 40. And as I recall, the discussion was to try to focus on an ROI of about 20 years. So does this contract District 1, since we haven't done one for a number of years, does it fall within that? And if not, how are we planning on addressing that growth pays for itself policy?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner, and you're correct. We've had lots of discussions over the years about growth paying for growth and what does that definition really look like. And so when it comes to, since that time you were speaking about Blue River 21, in which the developer did purchase 50 permits per year for 7 years. I think they're on their last year, if I remember correctly, and last year they actually developed more than 50 homes, so they didn't have to purchase permit vouchers. And so you are correct. When we look at a business case for a particular, enlarging a particular district into the consolidated main sewer district, we are looking at a time frame of about 20 to 25 years. Our bonds are typically 20-year bonds, and so that's, we felt was a appropriate number or appropriate amount of time to look for payback. And just as a reminder, these sanitary sewers, those are 100-year assets, so they do have a long life in the ground. And so when it comes to this particular contract district, the payback with the development of homes, they're proposing about 131 home sites. The payback's about 30 years. But as I mentioned, this sewer actually opens up an additional 250 acres. And so when you take a look at that, and even if there is no development that occurs on that area within 20 years, and then it starts to develop, the payback actually shrinks very quickly, and it can start to pay back within 22 years, excuse me. So I hope that answers your question, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. O'Hara?
Yes, that area is growing very, very rapidly, so I would anticipate that the additional 250 acres will be taking advantage of those sewers.
Ms. Allenbrand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. McCarrick, Spark Business Plan.
Thank you.
Thank you for looking in the future.
And I do have a motion when you're ready.
Right ahead.
Excuse me.
Oh, we have to close the...
We have to close the public
Public
hearing
hearing.
first.
Sorry.
Well, yes, no, I asked if there were other questions of the commission, and there are none, so this is a public hearing. Anyone is welcome to speak. Thank you. Is there anyone present who would like to speak to this item? All right, there
Chair,
being no...
Chair, excuse me, I did have one that has
Okay.
signed up, Gary Morgan. Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, all right, I see or hear no one who wishes to speak, so the public hearing is closed. The item is back before the commission. A motion would be in order.
Thank you,
O'Hara.
Mr. Chairman. I move the board adopt resolution number WD 22-031, hereby creating contract district number 1 of Blue Valley number 28, authorizing funds to provide sewers in an amount not to exceed $4,400,000 and authorizing a contract district financing agreement with Flum 175 Investors, LLC.
Allenbrand, second.
O'Hara made the motion to approve. Allenbrand seconded the motion to approve the resolution and the recommendation for the contract district. Any further questions or comments? If not, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand,
Allenbrand, aye.
and Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. I have 7 votes in favor, motion carried.
Thank you.
Next item.
Item number 5, consider authorizing a change order to the construction contract with Double D Incorporated, doing business as Dale Brothers, in an amount not to exceed $221,507.90 to remove and dispose of concrete associated with the raising of the existing structures and hazardous material abatement on the Coleman die casting property near 164th and Mission Road, and thereby increasing the total construction contract amount in an amount not to exceed $677,707.90 per invitation to bid IFB number 2019-085.
Mr. Waters.
Morning, Commissioners. Joe Waters, Assistant County Manager. Commissioners, we're here requesting this change order to increase the contract amount to Dale Brothers for the demolition of a hazardous safety condition, safety worry that existed on this Coleman die casting property. The board approved a project for that purpose last year. This change order is within those available funds, just barely. The status of the project is that the building has been brought down. The slab has been removed under the oldest portion of the building, uncovering a significant amount of contaminated tanks, essentially concrete tanks that had old oils and water and things like that mixed in them. To our good fortune, the state KDHE, the state agency, stepped in, took care of a lot of that abatement. Really took over the property for us for a while, or from us for a while, to undertake that abatement, which we appreciate a great deal. But that still has added to our cost quite a lot, with more concrete to be removed and disposed of. We will be disposing of it on site. KDHE has given us that approval with that the concrete, that is, the steel and other disposables or demolition materials are being removed. This will allow us to complete that disposal of the rubble, but also to complete the remaining slab portion of the newer portion of the building, so we can complete the work that we set out to do initially. We hope that there are no more contaminants found under that existing slab. We don't have any indication of subsurface conditions, but so far our luck has not turned out very well. But with that, I stand for any questions.
Questions of the staff? Ms. Allenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Waters, I know this has been on your capital improvement plan. I keep saying CIP for some time. And you just remind me, because I can't remember, because I know that there may be more findings as we go along, hopefully not. And is this, since the responsibility of this will be turned over Johnson County Parks and Rec? Who's going to maintain the property?
The work, the direction from the board thus far has been to clear the site of any of this unsafe condition and any hazardous things that we come upon in the course of doing so. Ownership of that, or taking ownership of that, would be a decision point for this board at a later date. Parks and Recreation is undertaking a feasibility study working with City of Overland Park, who owns park area adjacent to this. And so that work is underway and would perhaps inform a decision by the board in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Waters, for refreshing my memory.
Yes, I would, this is another one of those items which we were unaware of when we started this process, and who knows what else might be discovered. So as far as ownership is concerned, I think those who are involved in that are going to want to wait until we know for sure what needs to be cleaned up and what has been cleaned up. Ms. O'Hara?
Yes, just to reiterate, this is within the budget that we initially set, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Ms. Ansley?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I appreciate the discussion about ownership because I think it needs to be clear that the county does not own this property. We have cleaned it up because we have bailed out a private business that went into bankruptcy and left this basically a mess there. So I think it's important that we remember that we don't own this property, but we're cleaning it up. Secondly, I just want to give a hats off to former County Commissioner Steve Klicka. He was the one who originally brought this to our attention. He worked really hard to come to some resolution for it, and even though he's no longer on the commission, I just want to recognize his important work toward this.
Okay, thank you. Ms. O'Hara?
Yes, I want to point out that this was a 30-year, it was a 30-year hazardous nuisance for our children, and is why we took action on this. There is a path that is beaten from Blue Valley Middle School down to where this building once stood. This is about public safety, and we were successful in getting a majority of the board to go along with this. This took years and years and years to finally get action on it, and I do want to thank my colleagues on the board for supporting this because this is within my district. And the community was very engaged in voicing their support of this, and for $700,000. If all goes well, we will have 35 acres of parkland available if the board so chooses to go forward with that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ashcraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Waters, this amount is comparatively de minimis, but how do we know that this is the best value in terms of using this contractor? I can't imagine there being much savings, but I just wanted to get your reaction, your read on that.
Commissioner, we have looked at their costs, when, I believe compared to their, on a unit cost basis, the nature of the work that they're doing is very much more, it's just more of the same that they had been doing. And we've looked at the detail on the costs of disposing on site versus hauling off. So we have some good detail for comparison purposes. We did not have a great large number of bidders, as I recall, in the first place on this, and they were very competitive, so we feel comfortable with their pricing.
Thank you.
Ms. Fast?
Yes, I just want to ask, it won't be 30 acres of parkland. A lot of it will be conservation land because it's a wetland. You got railroad tracks through it. And so I think I don't want the public to think it's, there's going to be playgrounds throughout and so forth. I mean, it really is a conservation district. Also, one of the issues were the wells I had talked to you about, and I just know from growing up on a farm and how expensive we've had a lot of wells on our farm to tap and get into them.
Commissioner, removing or really having anything to do with those wells, and I think there's 17 or 18 of them on the site test wells that the EPA installed. That is not a part of this scope of work. Should the board have an interest in taking ownership, ultimately, that's when we would get into, okay, what are the other things that need to be done? Fencing and things like those wells.
Okay, other comments?
I have a motion
Yes,
when
Ms.
you're ready.
O'Hara. We'll
Thank
ask
you.
for public comment at this time. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this item? If not, the motion would be in order. Ms. O'Hara?
Thank you. I move to authorize a change order to the construction contract with Double D Incorporated, DBA Dale Brothers, in the amount not to exceed $221,507.90 to remove and dispose of concrete associated with the raising of the existing structure and hazardous material abatements on the Coleman die casting property near 164th and Mission Road, and thereby increasing the total construction contract amount in amount not to exceed $677,707.90 per invitation to bid IFB number 2019-085.
Allen second.
O'Hara made the motion, Allen Brand seconded the motion to authorize and approve the change order in the item recommended. Any further questions or comments? If not, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allen aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. I have 7 votes in favor, motion carried.
Thank you.
Next item.
Item number 6, Civil Service Pay Plan Resolution Number 077-22. Consider adopting Resolution Number 077-22, modifying the FY 2022 and FY 2023 budget resolutions, numbers 073-21 and 064-22, and approving modified 2022 and 2023 civil service pay plans for the Sheriff's Office, and approving the reallocation and expenditures of general fund reserves, countywide support fund, in the amount of $2,996,258 for the fiscal year FY 2022 and $11,424,694 for the FY 2023 to increase pay and convert to a step plan for sworn civil service staff, except for the staff assigned to the Johnson County Crime Lab, and to approve sign-on bonuses to new deputies hired in 2022 and 2023, payable during the first 12 months of employment, and amending Johnson County Human Resources Policy Number 301 related to compensation.
Mr. Thompson.
Good morning again, Chairman and Commissioners. Maury Thompson, Deputy County Manager and Interim Human Resources Director. Thank you for that. The issue statement that the clerk just read was the direction that this body gave staff at the conclusion of your business session last week. However, if you've had a chance to read through the briefing sheet, you will see that staff is proposing an alternative for your consideration this week. We've continued to work with the Sheriff's Office since the board's meeting last week to talk about a solution that we believe is acceptable to both the Human Resources, the county staff, as well as the Sheriff's Office staff. I'm pleased to report that I believe we have an alternative to suggest to you today that does that. And not to speak for the Sheriff, ask him to join me here in a moment to make some comments, but we believe we've got a proposal for you to consider today. I want to start by walking through the documents, because if you noticed this agenda item, there are a number of documents attached to it. There are 4 sheets of pay plans. So what those are is the $26.50 starting amount that we talked about last week that this board directed staff to come back with. And you see there are 2 of those, the 2022 and 23. With whatever action the body takes, you will need to adopt pay plans for the remainder. If there are changes adopted today, you'll need to take action to adopt new pay plans for the remainder of this year as well as 23. So you have 2 plans, again, for the 2650, if you will, plan. Secondly, you have the proposal of a starting hourly of $27.50. And again, you've got that proposal for the remainder 22 and 23. And we'll come back to those, of course. Just walking through the documents very quickly. Next one is Policy 301, and if you'll look down, hopefully you have a red line version there as well as a clean copy. 4th paragraph, we have added a sentence to that paragraph that states, except as otherwise authorized by resolution of the board, all pay tables approved during the adoption of the county's annual budget shall apply to the classified staff of each county department, agency, and office. That's just ensuring that your policy coincides and is consistent with the action you're considering taking today. Again, whether that 2650, 2750, or some other amount, we need to ensure that that is matches. So back to your briefing sheet then. I talked about we've looked at an alternative, and we're here to propose that to you today. And again, happy to talk about 2650, but if you would allow, I'd like to go to the 2750 and talk about it at least first. So an alternate pay plan has been included today for discussion, and it's being recommended by county staff. The 2750 pay plan, I'll refer to it that way, starts at a higher rate, obviously, than the 2650 or the current that's been proposed. If you follow the math along that pay plan, most steps increase by 4%, except for 4.35, a slight deviation in step 2 to 3. And then you'll see one fairly significant staff increase at 8%. That occurs when you move from deputy to master deputy. If you look at your pay plan there, deputy and master deputy are combined in range D together. So again, that's why you've got that significant jump there, the movement from deputy to master deputy. So again, that's the proposal today. I will offer that we are making a suggested modification even to the 2750 plan. If you look at step 2, it is $28.50. So we're here today to propose the adoption of a starting wage of $27.50 at step 1, but we would begin to use step 2. We would put on hold, if you will, step 1 and go to step 2, $28.50 for the new hiring rate for the sheriff's office deputies until you would see new hires will start on step 2 until there are 14 or fewer deputy vacancies. I might ask, why 14? 14 is the average vacancy number in deputies for the year 2021. So that's the baseline. Again, if you look back, and if you look back even a longer period, 14 was a pretty good average of where the sheriff's office typically runs in terms of vacancies. Then a bit of good news, if you will, from a financial perspective. In working with the sheriff, and I sincerely appreciate the conversation we've had, this would be funded, if you will, by foregoing some already authorized expenditures for the sheriff's office. And I've provided those there in the middle of the page. I will run through them quickly. So if this new pay plan is adopted, following measures would be no longer necessary and associated costs would be avoided next year in '23. We have built in for '22 compression adjustments totaling $195,095. That cost would go away. As you know, we've talked about hiring bonuses in '22 and '23. That cost is approximately $300,000. If the board adopts this pay plan, those would be cost unnecessary. 2023 retention bonuses, and we talked about this last week, $1.5 million. That cost would be not necessary going forward. We've also built into the county budget 2023 range movement adjustments, that 2%, and that you'll recall is in the budget. We did budget in for sworn staff in the sheriff's office. With this pay plan, we would forego that expense. That would save, if you will, another $780,000. And finally, our 2023 compression adjustments, that ongoing 2% for compression in our '23 budget, that would alleviate the need for another $780,000 as well. So with those savings, that would help fund this temporary increase to $28.50. Again, I mentioned we will need to, if the board so chooses to make this adjustment and adopt this pay plan today, we'll need to also, as indicated in the motion, adopt the change to our HR policy 301. Any other notes? And with that, I think I'm stand for questions, and obviously welcome the sheriff to add anything to my comments.
Before I ask the sheriff to make any comments, I just want to go back and quick review. The pay adjustment or the pay plan would start at $27.50, except for new hires for a period of time. They would be hired at $28.50.
Correct. And Chairman, if I could, I want to be clear. If we have any existing deputies who are below that $28.50, they would also adjust. So
Right. And so any bonuses, hiring bonus would not be part of this plan. And the retention bonus for '23, which was about $1.5 million, would not be part of this plan. That would go away.
that is correct.
However, the retention bonus for '22 would still be paid. Is that right?
That's correct, and thank you for that comment. I should have stated that as well. Yeah, and the thinking is, we have made that commitment, and it was close to the time it was going to pay out, so didn't believe it appropriate to pull that back.
And I think there was also a hiring bonus in the neighborhood of somewhere around $4,000 or $4,400 that had been paid previously. That also will cease.
Correct.
So the bonuses are not part of this plan except for 2022, and those that have already been paid or committed to. So, all right.
Correct, Chairman, and if I could add real quickly, that's something that I talked about last week. You've heard the sheriff say he questions whether those were effective strategies, and if you recall, that was one of the areas of agreement that I pointed out. I myself have questioned the return on investment of some of those one-time fixes that we tried to use to address this issue. I believe personally that those were good decisions at the time to try them. It was a more cost-effective way to try to address our staffing issues, but I like the sheriff questioned whether they're working.
Okay. Well, with the bonuses and attendant items that are no longer part of this plan and the adjustment upward, I think is a good plan. So, Sheriff, did you have any comments you wanted to make?
Just I want to thank Maury for his diligence in this and his commitment to all of us. I do want to note one thing while we're here today, a sad note. You'll see black on our badges today. We lost one of our officers yesterday, a retired officer to looks like a medical issue. Former Chief Deputy Steve Quigg. He retired about 3 years ago and didn't have much of a retirement. So that's a sad note. And the unfortunate part is people in this business don't live as long as other people, and that's we take that gladly to try to protect public safety, what we do. Okay. Thank you, Maury. I don't know what we're going to do without him. Quite frankly, I'm thinking about going with him, so thank you.
All right, so you are satisfied with the elements of this plan as presented. Thank you very much, Ms. Hanslick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Thompson, for working through this. I know it was very, very difficult, and I appreciate it. And I know that our wonderful men and women who work for the sheriff's office appreciate. I know they appreciate it too, because I've talked to some of them, and I'm supportive of it. But I do have a couple questions in regard to the budgetary impact. From what I want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, that the cost for the remainder of 2022 is $3,195,533, and the cost for 2023 is $13,249,020, and the proposal is to take that funding from the countywide support fund for both years. It's the same fund that we talked about for the Evergreen living situation. That's correct?
That is correct.
So the question, and I think some of my colleagues bring this up a lot, what happens in 2024? Are we looking at having to potentially have a mill levy increase to fund this increase?
That's a good question that we can't answer today.
Yeah.
But there will be considerations of that, when you begin to prepare the 2024 budget. So, Ms. O'Hara?
I think it will give us an opportunity to sharpen our pencils in other areas so that we can accommodate this increase without having to increase property taxes. I do have one question. So I quickly added that up, and I came up with 3.475095. Is that correct, the savings?
I've got 3.363. We're very close here. So.
Okay, all right. But so where is that reflected? Will that savings, that will be in the general fund, and actually, that will be reflected in the general fund, correct?
Well, it's an offset of the cost of this new plan.
Right. But the entire cost of the plan is being paid for by the reserves.
The increase is being paid
Yes.
for.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes. I would make this comment because it's applicable here, because of the fact that we would be using reserves which are already in the budget. There is no need to amend the 2022 or 2023 budget. That's the same situation that would be applied to Evergreen Living. Those reserve funds are already part of the budget, and so using those reserve funds would not require an amended budget. Ms. Allen Brandt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, first of all, I want to thank the sheriff and his staff for working together and coming up with a solution. I really appreciate that. We need to take care of all law enforcement, and it was quite obvious that there was areas that needed to be fixed. And I know it wasn't easy and it was painful, but, sometimes the negotiation coming out the end ends up with a better solution than what maybe the rest of us thought. And I just only want to offer one thing, and I don't know, Sheriff, if you know about this, but one of the things our county manager does, she has a 360 peer review that she goes through. And I know I did this for my companies where I worked. I know she does it. I don't know if you do it or not. You do that? Okay. Well, never mind.
Sheriff, while you're there, let me ask you a question. I know that you have a training class. I think you have a training class going on. What is that number? Do you know?
The number we just hired, or what?
No. I thought in our conversation you mentioned that there was a training class for new recruits that were currently ongoing.
Well, we don't have it in the academy. We're sending them to Hutchinson right now.
Okay.
Because for cost savings.
Right.
So I think we've got 5 or 6 going out there. Oh, I met with the director of KLETC, and he said he would take care of us. So we're looking at other options, and hopefully we're going to come up with some good options in the future for you.
Okay.
We're still not hiring, and that's one of the things, raising up the pay. We don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul and steal from some of our PDs, but we also want to make sure that we hire the right people for the right jobs.
Right. Thank you. Ms. O'Hara?
I have a motion when you're ready.
All right. Ms. Fast?
Yeah, last week, is asking you, why do people leave? And, they want to get on patrol. I talked to a number of my cities. Prairie Village has recruited 4 of yours in the last year. And that is, largely due to they want to get on patrol. So I've asked my police chiefs, and what is the reasons they come to them, and people don't want to work in the jail that long. And they were saying that you have to work in our jail 2-3 years to move to patrol. Could that be shortened to 3-6 months and then move to patrol so that we don't lose them to the cities?
Absolutely, and the thing that we have a draw in is the sheriff's office. It's kind of funny because everybody wants to compare us to PDs. And they said, well, it's apples and oranges. Well, they're an apple, we're a watermelon. So we're a lot bigger. We have a lot more opportunities with our civil division investigations. So what we try to sell is those opportunities. And 3 years, 4 years out of a career, every officer you see sitting here, we started out in detention. And it is a great opportunity to learn how to de-escalate, how to deal with mental health issues. We have more CIT officers trained than anybody else in the county. So I think it makes them really, really good cops. It's more of an internship, and you learn the culture, you learn the shift work. It's a great opportunity, and I think that the police officers that the city gets are really, really good at what they do. You don't get too many complaints about us. So but everything we do, because it's so big, is competitive. It has to be. We have to find a way to choose the best officers for patrol positions. It's a tough job out there. We don't have the backup that the cities do. You'll see 2 or 3 officers show up at serious calls. We send 1 or 2. And it is a different deal. And we tried hiring some from the cities, and it was interesting, some of the responses we got. It's like, hey, there's no lights out here. Right. Where's my backup? They're a little ways away. So, but that helps you, that experience in detention helps you be able to handle that better, because most of our clients.
Why 3 years versus 6 months? Because then, you're losing people because they don't want to stay the 3 years to go to patrol.
Neither did I. I worked a total of 9 years in the jail through promotions. But all of those experiences, I think, make you a better cop and a better manager and better leadership. We will lose some, but the cities gain good police officers when they get them. So it still benefits the citizens of Johnson County.
Okay, thank you. Other questions, Mr. Ashcraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sheriff, I'm supportive of this. Honestly, Sheriff, I hope it works. I hope you're able to draw from a larger geographic area. And I hope it has an impact on overtime, at least in some situations. And I hope it has an impact on morale, and we get through this. I want to be optimistic, Sheriff. The reality of law enforcement in this country today is maybe more complicated than this, but let's hope this is a major step in the right direction.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Questions or comments? Ms. Hanslick?
Yes. I had a question. I appreciate that you are working with the Kansas Training Center out in Hutchinson, and I'm just curious if you see that continuing, because frankly, I've always had in my mind, I know that the training center that you have over here on Ridgeview has been used for a number of different county departments. If that collaboration continues, that building would be available maybe for public health at some point, but I don't know what your plan is going forward.
I would love that. In fact, we've had initial discussions. This end of the state has over 4,000 police officers in it. And it is a hiring issue to send them out to Hutch for 15 weeks.
Sure.
You guys got a really nice big building sitting down here that you're paying a lot of money for, that we're trying to get them interested in, and maybe create a regional police academy, which KLETC could operate. JUCO's interested in it. We've got a lot of players involved in this, and man, I think it would be an awesome opportunity. We could move out of several of our buildings and consolidate operations, have a training center right there, and it'd be you can even put housing in there, and I think it'd be an economic boom for Johnson County. And man, what a jewel in the crown of Johnson County. Great opportunity if we could do that.
Do you have a financing plan in mind for that?
That's way out of my. That's way out of my.
That's your job.
Sheriff, let me ask you this last question. The community college has a training program, as I recall. Is that one just overburdened, is full?
And we've had questions from a lot of our larger cities are having trouble. I mean, they're down officers too, and they're having trouble getting the number of officers in there. And JUCO's been looking at expanding their operation to accommodate that. In fact, we're bringing in some folks from KLETC in a cooperative effort and baby steps to head that way. But they're having hard times again, and that's why we did our own academy, because we trained 20 at a time, and they couldn't accommodate that many. But there are a lot of smaller academies all throughout this side of the state. Man, it would be nice to consolidate that. You'd have consistency, and I'm telling you, I think it would be nice to see Johnson County contribute to that.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Is there anyone present who would like to speak to this item? Yes?
This is my first time to come to a meeting like this, so I don't really know what I'm doing, but
Just state
my
your
name
name and
is
address. You have 2 minutes.
Mary McLennan, and I live in Merriam. And am I getting this correct? The deputies only make like $26.50 an hour?
No, it will go to $27.50 an hour.
And then $28.50?
That-
Isn't Johnson County one of the most profitable, or I don't know, has the most money in taxes or something like that? I've heard something like Johnson County is supposed to be really rich, or I don't know what. But the fact that we're only paying our deputies this amount of money, I'm completely shocked. I almost fell out of my chair. I mean, you could probably go to McDonald's and make this much. And that is a total shame. I'm totally embarrassed that I live in Johnson County, and that's how much we're paying our sheriff and deputies. I have a brother that was a police officer and 2 nephews that are police officers. And they make way more than this. And they don't live in the richest county or whatever we supposedly are. So anyways, I just wanted to throw that out. I'm completely shocked, and the fact that we do not have money to pay our deputies, I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
I guess that's all I'll say.
Thank you.
Is there a way to look up everybody's salary? Like, do all of you guys get salaries from Johnson County?
I'm sorry, the question again was?
Do the county commissioners make a salary from Johnson County?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a way for me to look up that number?
Yes, ma'am. It's been that way since 2009.
Do you make more than the sheriff or the
The
deputies?
sheriff has always had an increase every year. Yes.
No, do you guys make more
No.
than the deputies?
Well, okay, let's go to those numbers, if you will, Mr. Thompson. Let's say a starting salary at current levels is what annual?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Tom, you got it? Okay.
Okay.
Most county commissioners make about $53,000 a year, I think.
No.
That's what
No,
we
it's a
made,
little
I
less
thought.
than that.
That's what
That's
you
if you
made.
include car allowance and all.
When you were on the commission, you made that much.
Yeah, no, I didn't make that much either. But our starting salary at $28.50 would be $59, so I think we've got you finally.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yes.
And, God bless you, ma'am,
Oh.
we appreciate it. We'll take anything we can get, but that's just the beginning pay, so it goes up from there. And
Yeah.
This will help immensely.
Okay. As I recall, current level is starting salary is about 49,000 plus, maybe 49.3, 49.5.
I just asked Tom to double check my math, and we agree at the $28.50 that we're proposing, it's $59,280 annually.
That's for starting salary. I'm
starting
asking
as
for
the
the
sheriff's.
2750, which would be about a 14% increase in existing salaries. Is that right?
That sounds right.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Myers?
Yeah, Mr. Thompson, correct me if I'm wrong, but this would put us at number 1 in the Kansas City metro area, or at least in the Johnson County area.
Yeah.
All cities.
You saw that look I was giving you? Yes, Johnson County, and I believe in the metro area, but
Not only at the beginning, but also the maximum salary.
correct.
We'd be number 1 at both.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else who would like to comment? Yes.
Hi, this is Lynn Levine. I'm Overland Park, and I just have a question. Okay, I'm looking at these salaries, and I agree with her. I think they're very, very low. They can get hurt. They can get killed. It's a dangerous job, right? So why are you hiring a social coordinator at $84,000 a year? What do they do that's so dangerous? I'm having a real problem with this. It's in your budget. Why aren't they getting money, something like that? That's for our safety. Social coordinator doesn't do anything for me. That's all I want to ask.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? All right, it's back before the commission. I would just simply make this comment. All the ranks get about a 14% increase with this action. And that step-up plan goes up 4% every year. And so that's the other part, I think, that is beneficial to those who work in the sheriff's office. And that's for, what's the right term? Deputies.
Correct.
Rather than civilians. So, okay. All right, Ms. O'Hara, did you have a motion?
Yes, I do. Okay. I move to adopt resolution number 077-22, modifying the FY 2022 and FY 2023 budget resolutions numbers 073-21 and 064-22, and approving modified 2022 and 2023 civil service pay plans for the sheriff's office. Let me make sure that I get this. The 2750 pay plan as recommended by staff converting sworn civil service staff to step plan except for staff assigned to the crime lab, and amending Johnson County Human Resource Policy number 301 related to compensation, and to approve the reallocation and expenditures of general fund reserves countywide support fund in the amount of $3,195,533 for fiscal year 2022 and $13,249,020 for fiscal year 2023.
Alan Brand, second.
O'Hara made the motion, Allen Brand seconded the motion to approve the civil service pay plan and resolutions pertaining thereto as recommended. Any further questions or comments? If not, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Alan Brand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. I have 7 votes in favor, motion carried. Thank you all.
Chairman,
Yes.
if I may, I'd like to make a couple of comments before I step away here. This may have looked pretty straightforward today, but trust me, this took tremendous amount of time over the last week, and I appreciate the kind words for me, but I was only one of them that was working on that. Tom Dugan from the Sheriff's Office, my partner here in all this work. I want to say thank you to Tom and to Nicole Kilgore from the Sheriff's Office as well. We had her on the phone running new plans as we talked over the last week. So great thanks to them. Also to Peg Trent and her staff, Cindy Dunham and Denise Howard, spent hours on this. Again, this is a complicated endeavor to move from a merit plan to a step plan. You've got to look at person by person and get them placed appropriately in the new scale. I mean, it takes a tremendous amount of work. Also want to say thanks to the Human Resources staff. Deanne Osman is back here, and Tiffany Henschel. Again, a tremendous amount of time this week. Budget and Financial Planning, Leslie Friedel and Gail Kaufman, I know spent many hours on this as well. So thank you to the team that helped get this done this past week, and I apologize if I missed anyone in that list. But
Well, good comments, and I know there was a lot of work that went into this. I would just simply add this. Previously there was a step-up plan, and then I think it was in about 17, it was changed, and that was a mutual decision. And so now we're back to the step-up plan. So good work on everybody's part. Thank you very much. All right, are there any other items on the action agenda?
No, sir.
All right, we will turn to Commission Communications, Reports and Communications. Ms. Postoke Ferguson.
Chairman and Commissioners, I have 2 items today. The first is an update on the airport land use compatibility plan. The Johnson County Planning Department is kicking off updates to both the Johnson County Executive Land Use Compatibility Plan and the new Century Air Center Land Use Compatibility Plan, both of which are part of the Johnson County Rural Comprehensive Plan. This planning effort is anticipated to take approximately 13 to 15 months. Through the RFP process that occurred in June, Johnson County selected a consultant who has experience in both airport master planning and airport land use compatibility planning. A planning advisory committee has been selected of approximately 13 people to help the planning effort, and they include representatives from Gardner, the City of Gardner, City of Olathe, City of Overland Park, Johnson County Planning Commission, the Johnson County Airport Commission, Board of County Commissioners, and the Air Traffic Control Tower managers. We're happy to announce that a kickoff planning advisory committee meeting is scheduled next week on Monday, October 3rd at 1 o'clock in the Johnson County Administration Building. The public is welcome to come and listen and will be live streamed through Zoom. Following that will be 2 public workshops at both airports. Information is attached in your packet, and then also a project website will be available as well. The second item is, I think Aaron left because of timing. He was going to be here to talk about this, but anniversary celebration. Oh, right in front of me. Aaron, thank you. Aaron, do you want to come forward and talk about the anniversary celebration this Saturday,
Have a quick
please?
comment, Aaron.
Please come Saturday. Thank you very much. No, we're celebrating the 80th anniversary since the start of Olathe Naval Air Station, which gave the county its 2 airports, and it's also the 55th anniversary of the Airport Commission. So there's events from 10 to 2 o'clock. Our website shows that it's kid-friendly, free food. Should be a great event out at the Commemorative Air Force. So we'd welcome you to be there. I will leave some flyers for it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Chairman, that's it for my report, and then next
All right.
is the audit report.
We do have an audit report. Mr. Heflin, the time is 12:24, reminder. So,
Chairman, Commissioners, County Manager, staff, Harry Heflin, Director Audit Services. Today, we're before you to present our audit on the Johnson County Library Performance Audit. And with that, I will turn that over to Michelle Cleveland, who conducted the audit.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm happy to present our performance audit of the library's implementation of Pillars of Performance and Development, otherwise known in the county as PPD. The PPD process is the county's employees' performance and development management system for coaching employees and providing performance feedback. It was implemented in 2018 to align employee development and performance feedback with the county's HPO core values, goals, and strategy. It is important because effective performance management can improve employee engagement as well as individual and team productivity. Our objective was to determine, is the county's PPD system for employee coaching and development working as intended for the library employees? Criteria to define working as intended came from industry recommendations and county guidance. It means collaboration between employees and managers in developing their goals and priorities. Employees view the process as positive and focusing on future plans and needs for growth and development. Employees view performance feedback they receive as sufficient, valuable, and meaningful, and check-in meetings are occurring as required by county procedure. In short, yes, based on this criteria, the PPD process is working as intended for library employees. The PPD process is working as intended because the county's Human Resources Department is providing sufficient guidance to county employees to implement the process, and the library administration team provided oversight of the process. County HR Procedure 602-1 provides the minimum expectations for supervisors and employees. Online PPD training is available through Johnson County's online learning site, and employees can access at any time. Employees are expected to complete the online training as soon as possible after their new employee orientation. HR provides additional training to newly promoted or hired supervisors as part of their county's Supervisor Training Institute. Links to the related county procedures, training, and other resources for implementing the PPD process are all available on the employee intranet page for job performance. We found the county's guidance met the Society for Human Resources Management practice guidelines for implementing effective performance management systems in several ways. The process is collaborative, focuses on future plans and needs of the organization and the employee, creates a positive work culture and environment, supports professional development, provides frequent feedback, shares responsibility between supervisors and the employees, and aligns with the county's philosophy and values. We found 88% of employees on average between 2019 and 2021 were provided at least the minimum number of check-ins required by county guidance. We noted that there was a slight increase in the number of employees not receiving the minimum number of check-ins as the overall number of employees increased in the library. Over this 3-year period, these employees in orange that did not receive the minimum number of feedbacks, out of those, 40% of them were new employees requiring 2 extra check-ins per year, so they were required 4 check-ins instead of 2. We'd also like to note that all of the managers and supervisors we interviewed perform regular informal check-ins with their direct reports that were not documented in Oracle as these formal check-ins are. We surveyed library employees to find out how they believed the PPD process was working. We had a 48% response rate to the survey, and those employees who responded were representative of the library employee population in terms of years of service. The majority of respondents answered priority plans were collaborative, Priority plans were forward-thinking for career development goals. The check-ins provided sufficient feedback and were consistent with the merit raises they received. The process was valuable for feedback, meaningful for organizational development, and increased their understanding of how performance affects the team. What the employees liked most was the one-on-one time with their supervisors and managers, the ability to set their own goals in the process, and the frequent feedback. What the employees liked least was the time the process takes and the issues with the Oracle tool used to document the process. In conclusion, we found the library's PPD practices are responsive, collaborative, and proactive in approach, and align with the county's desire to create a positive and rewarding culture of teamwork where everyone is encouraged and motivated to perform their best. The library administration team provided oversight from HR reports, and managers and supervisors approached the process proactively. Those who made standing meetings on their calendars for their direct reports check-ins ensured all employees they supervised received regular feedback and either met or exceeded the minimum check-in requirements. We believe this approach could help other departments and managers across the county. I want to thank all of the library administration and employees that participated in the audit. Tricia Suantrop, the county librarian, is also present. We are both available for any questions.
All right, questions by commissioners? Ms. Allenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to comment, it was a great, thorough audit, and what a great outcome. Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms.
Just,
Fast.
just ask Tricia, what did you learn from it? That's the most important in your senior staff.
I think I learned that what we had heard from staff as far as their likes and dislikes were proved out in the audit. You know, sometimes when you hear things, you don't know if you're just hearing from a few people or if it's really widespread. And so I was thankful to the staff and the managers that they were very honest with their experience.
Anything that you would like to focus on from it?
Well, that 40%, or the 40 people who didn't get their regular check-ins.
Okay.
Okay, other questions? Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question probably from Mr. Heflin. I was just wondering, and if you don't know it at this point, if you could share with me what the budget was, manpower budget, I would appreciate it.
I don't have that, but I will get that to you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Commissioner Ashcraft, the whole audit was less than 900 hours.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, are there any other items to consider under management reports? If not,
No, sir. Thank you.
all right, if not, we'll turn to commission comments, but before that, let me ask the question. The hour is at 12:32. We have a request for a 30-minute executive session. As I look at next week's agenda, about 9 of the items are appointments or reappointments. Do we want to take a break for lunch, come back for the executive session and agenda review?
Yeah.
Or we could do a
Mr. Chairman, if I could clarify, executive session is 15 minutes. I cut it. It's 15 minutes
15
for
minutes,
executive.
I'm
I cut
sorry.
it in half.
So we could do the executive session, take a recess for lunch and come back, or have a cold agenda next week. Ms. O'Hara.
I would prefer a cold agenda and have the executive session after
Okay.
the commissioner comments.
Any other comments? You want to go for agenda review? Well, all right. If there's, I don't hear anything.
Well, I prefer agenda review, but I'm willing to go
okay.
whatever.
So do I, but
Okay.
I
think
want
it's hard
lunch.
going
That's
in
my
a cold-
motivation.
Plus, I do
All right.
want lunch, so
Well, let's take a 15-minute executive session. We'll recess 45 minutes for lunch and then come back. Is that appropriate? Or you want to,
after commission reports, or,
pardon?
are we going to do commission reports first, or,
Commission comments, yes.
okay, thank you.
All right.
Sorry.
Or we could simply recess and come back for agenda review, followed by the executive session. All right, okay. So commission comments. Ms. Fast.
The only thing I have is yesterday it was really incredible to see the contents of the time capsule. And I know you've brought, I was hoping you'd be there, Commissioner Ashcraft, because that was, but I mean, I love history and to see the letters from each of the cities in my district and how all the contents were preserved. And the museum is working on having public events and preserving that and displaying it.
Okay, Ms. Allenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I attended the Wind Down Evergreen event last Saturday, and it was a really nice event. It was a fundraiser. I also attended the Johnson County Mental Health Board meeting this past week, and I am amazed at all the programs that are being offered for mental health and just other services that we're providing that I'm just not even aware of. So I was going to reach out to Mr. DeWeese to see if he could give us a listing of all those. I also want to compliment, I attended the Airport Commission board meeting, and I want to just share a few things that were said during that Airport Commission meeting, and I want to applaud Aaron Otto and his staff. One of the things, the reports that was given back from the air show that we had was that their staff over every, I'm hoping I'm getting this right, every air show they've ever had, they've never had such staff that was just willing to say, you know what, we'll do it. And they get it done. So I think that says something about our Johnson County staff and his staff under his direction. But I want to share that there was over 26,000 people that attended the air show, over 35 different states. 88% of them was from Kansas and Missouri. And I wrote down a couple of these. 20% from Olathe, Overland Park was 15%, and they had over 983 hotel rooms of people that came here and stayed. It is a huge cost to put these events on, and one of the major costs was we don't make any money from these events. The large cost is law enforcement and, of course, MedAct, which is to be reasoned. And we don't know if we're going to have future shows, but Mr. Otto said that we were on the calendar for the Blue Angels, but, you know, who knows what will happen there. I also want to let everyone know that we had an increase in air traffic travel, over 10,000 in August, which was amazing. And I'm not going to go over all of them. I know we're on a time constraint, but there was lots of leases being made for new builds on hangars. So it's exciting to see all that done. Also, they're working on the rail. We've had increase in rail, which I always like seeing traffic increasing, air traffic and also rail, because that helps also with overall trucks. I also attended the Johnson County Time Capsule. I'm not going to go into it. Commissioner Fass did a good job explaining that. I do have pictures for you, Commissioner Ashcraft, because there's some really interesting Olathe that's in your district. And I also attended the event last night for the University of Kansas Hospital and their accredited cancer center. So thank you.
Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, a few days late, but I wanted to wish everyone a happy Jewish New Year, which was Sunday the 25th through Tuesday the 27th. My Hebrew is not very good, but Rosh Hashanah, if I'm saying it, and it's the year 5728. So happy New Year to all of our Jewish friends and family members.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hanslick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to report on two meetings this week. First of all, I believe it was Wednesday night, myself and Commissioner Ashcraft and the chairman attended the joint BOCC and Planning Commission meeting. We had opportunity to meet with members of the Planning Commission and the zoning boards, had a meal together, and then had a very helpful, interesting presentation by our chief counsel about board responsibilities. So that was a nice opportunity. Secondly, earlier this week, I attended the monthly MARC board meeting, and a couple of items of particular interest in Johnson County. I mean, we all know that MARC serves as the Metropolitan Planning Organization, a federally required organization regarding transportation, but we also don't often remember that Mark also is very, very critical in our metro area public safety and public health. And so, for example, one of the things that we did at the board meeting this week was approve maintenance on 3 911 communications tower sites. The metro area works together in regard to 911 communications, and specifically, these towers are in Bonner Springs, Easton, and Tonganoxie. So that is a very important function of MARC. We also approved an application for a grant to provide hazardous materials emergency planning, and that's to support hazmat training, enhancing emergency response plans, hazard analysis, and other emergency response situations in the metro area. And then finally, we approved moving ahead with metro area collaboration between the health departments to address the opioid crisis through public education, through availability of Narcan. So I just think it's important to highlight that regional collaboration is critical to our public health and our public safety, and allows Johnson County to provide even better service to our residents. Thank you.
Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't get to go to the time capsule opening, and I wanted to really bad. I love going to those types of situations, but I had a conflict with the meeting, KCATA, yesterday, and then after that meeting, spent the evening with Johnson County Parks and Recreation District meeting, but both meetings went very well.
Okay. Ms. O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we had a robust discussion this morning on Evergreen, and I think it's very critical that we ask staff to communicate with other entities who provide services for Medicaid clients in Johnson County. So I'm going to make a motion. I move the board to have the staff report back to the board for next week's meeting, October 6, 2022, relating to the Evergreen termination agreement, information from entities who have Medicaid clients, including Villa St. Francis, with a survey of area facilities and number of Medicaid clients and beds available.
Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of a second.
Well,
Is there any other?
I
said the motion dies for lack of a second. Thank you. Is there a second?
Yeah, there was, Mr. Chairman. I thought
Mr.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
I will second, Mr. Chairman, for the purpose of discussion.
All right. Ms. Allenbrand.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a comment, because we did this some time ago, went out and received all the information on what Medicaid beds were open. Am I living in a dream world somewhere? I mean, I remember doing that because that was a question I had, so. I'm
Yeah.
just saying it was done at one
Yes,
time,
and-
and it's going to be different every day you
Right.
take it.
And to clarify, and Commissioner O'Hara and I had this conversation this week, I understand the desire. The request will not get you, unfortunately, the information you want. Beds can be duly licensed as Medicaid, Medicare, and obviously be used for private. So to ask a facility for the number of their Medicaid licensed bed is not an accurate reflection of how those beds are actually used.
At least it would be a beginning to have a conversation. And I think that we had experts within the field today make comments that, that the issue is staffing and not beds available. And I think that it would just be important for us to revisit those issues and see if we can come up with a better solution. That's the reason for my motion. And
Well, again, I stated several times, and it's obvious again by Mr. Thompson's comments, that this information has been presented. And for those who have listened to it or reviewed it or participated in the discussions, it is available. So I see no reason for the motion to pass. Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I take Commissioner O'Hare's motion as a desire to formalize some information related to this issue. And I had a number of questions that I was going to just visit with Mr. Thompson on related to a lot that was discussed today, some things that were presented. And part of it is not so much, part of it are the plans that Evergreen has now and what they anticipate, but also some of the things that were presented by the audience, things that I think are fair issues that need to be addressed related to I called it our census, but is the only option that we should consider or have considered is a facility, or are there other options that are available? And Commissioner O'Hare mentioned Villa St. Francis. I think a couple people are talking about that, and I'm not advocating for them, but they do raise the issue about are there other strategies and what are the costs and benefits of that, because there is going to be a change, okay, and how do we progress long term, because the amount, as we all have recognized, it's a fairly large amount of money. And I want to make sure that those options, I understand them, have been explored. And also the potential role, because much of this discussion is for Evergreen to continue as an administrator of a facility, but they also provide other services to the aging services community, and what that role might be, what options there may be. So those are some of the things I wanted to discuss, and that Commissioner O'Hare didn't say that specifically, but I would be interested in learning about that, because it does impact my judgment of the 29 million.
Well, that information is available, and as Mr. Thompson indicated, specifics are difficult, if not impossible, to verify. So the amendment, or the motion before us is for that issue. Ms. Fast.
Yeah, I know as someone who's worked front lines trying to find facilities for seniors, you can have a list and they can say they have Medicaid beds, but one day they do, the next day they don't. One day it might be hospice. Some days that's only one person, they'll take. Sometimes it's 2 beds. And there is a huge shortage. As someone who works in the front line for years, I haven't now for 2-3, but I'm a part of colleagues. I do workshops with hospice social workers, home health social workers, and I just don't agree with some of those people who say there's all this available. Why would there be all this available? Because Medicaid doesn't pay and you lose. So I don't think this is data that you can't get, because just from knowing of going off the list, it is a moving target every day, and sometimes a facility decides not to fill any of the Medicaid beds, even though they have them licensed. So Commissioner O'Hara, Commissioner Ashcraft, meet with Maury. I mean, every time I meet with them, I get great information, so I just don't think we need this as a motion.
Ms. Allenbrand.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to bring up another point, but I remember working with Mr. Thompson almost over 2 years ago. It's been close to that. And I reached out to the Kansas Healthcare Association, American Healthcare Association, and got you all the information, and we pulled all that together. And, I strongly encourage, and I have said this all along, for Evergreen Board to meet with other communities to see if there's a partnership, and I'd still encourage them to sit down and meet with this group, sit down and meet with these other communities, because it would be a great partnership. We can't put these people on the street. They have to have a place to live. So no matter what you do, whether it is them building a new community or if it's them partnering up with somebody else, they need to get this done. And they don't ever say no. So they do take those residents. So
Okay,
I'm
thank
not
you.
in favor of this motion.
All right. The amendment, or the motion is before us. Ms. Hanslick.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate Commissioner Fast's comments, because I was going to say many of the same things, that any numbers that might be presented can be very, very misleading. The other concern I have is trying to compare Evergreen, which is a nonprofit facility, with for-profit facilities. They have very different motivations, and we can see that in quality of their services. I've said this a million times. Go to Medicare.gov. You can compare the ratings of facilities in Johnson County, and Evergreen is always at the top. And I won't name names, but there are some facilities in Johnson County that I would never want anyone to have to stay there.
Okay, thank you. Ms. O'Hara?
The purpose of the motion was simply to generate more communication between other entities because of the comments that were presented today. I am not an expert in this area. I've never put forth that I am an expert, but when I hear comments, I want us, these are people of high standing within the community, and they are experts within the community, and I think that it just behooves us to see if there's another option, because $29 million is an incredible amount of money. And so that is the purpose of the motion. I don't think that staff would mind opening up some communication with other people to see if possibly there's some other alternatives. I think it's just part of the process, and that is the purpose of the amendment. But I call the question.
All right, well, I'd simply make this last comment before I recognize the call to question. Commissioners are free to sit down with staff. This information is available, most of it, from Mr. Thompson. I would encourage you to meet with Mr. Thompson.
I have asked for specific information over and over, and I have not received some of the information. But that's fine. I will talk with Mr. Thompson. But yes, I call the question.
Okay, thank you. The motion is before us. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
No.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, no.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, no.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, no.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, no. I have 5 votes no, 2 in favor. Motion failed. I have one commission comment. I need to remember there is, at 5:30 this evening, I think there is an open house at the new Mid-America Center by Johnson County Parks and Recreation, and some of the work that they've done. So if you're available, I would encourage you to do that. The hour is
We do a
12:52. I would suggest that we take 45 minutes for a lunch break at this time and come back at
1:45.
1:35 for an executive session to be followed by agenda review, a 15-minute executive session.
Okay, let me do that. I move the board recess an open meeting and convene an executive session at 1:35 PM for a total of 15 minutes with a period of 10 minutes for the purpose of discussing pending litigation and preservation of attorney-client privilege, and a period of 5 minutes for the purpose of receiving the advice of counsel and protect attorney-client confidentiality, and reconvene in open session in this room at approximately 1:50 and are soon thereafter, as the executive session may end.
Do I hear a second to that motion?
I'm glad to second it, but first I want to clarify, is it 1:35 or 1:45 that we'll reconvene?
I thought you said 1:35.
1:35.
Okay, second.
Okay.
All right, the motion to recess and begin the executive session at 1:35 for a period of 15 minutes, and followed by agenda review. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, I have 7 votes in favor. That executive session will take place in the conference room in the legal department, so gather there at or before 1:35. We are in recess from our regular session. Thank you all very much.